with an SOS Saving Our Students. This is going to be a candid conversation around providing the love, discipline, and empathy that we need to positively influence students while guiding them on impactful conflict resolution practices, especially following the COVID-19 isolation. So without any further ado, we're going to call our panelists. We have Ms. Zulema Webster, Emanuela Perez, we have Ms. Williams, and our moderator is going to be Commissioner Justa Encarnacion. And Ms. Williams, is it Aisha or Aisha? Aisha. Aisha Williams. So let's give them all a big round of applause. Our commissioner is no stranger to moderating, so I'm going to turn it right over to you, Commish.
Thank you very much. Queen, that's who we'll always be. Remember that. So, of course, I've been asked to do this. I think it's because of my love for children, but my love for success in children. And of course, we lean towards education a lot for that. So I'm going to start by talking about a little bit of what we're doing in the government. And Governor Bryan has started linked, the senators passed the Gun Violence Act. And so now we have under the governor's office, the Gun Violence Division. And so it's really a connection that's being made with all entities. Education, of course, being a part of it, health, human services, VIPD, LEPC. So, I mean, we cannot do it by ourselves. It as a community-driven project in order for it to happen, but the focus isn't on discipline when it comes to reducing gun violence. What do you think it's about? Education, that's good. What else? Reinforcement. Retention. Support, guidance. And everything that you're talking about is really linked to behavioral health, true? Behavioral changes. If you lock someone up, unless there's a program after they're locked up, but you don't want to do that then, you want to do that even before. So we're going to be discussing a lot of what's going on in reference to that. One of the other things that we're doing in health is, Dr. Sims could speak to this, the Senate just passed the Behavioral Health Act. Didn't they, Dr. Sims, right? We worked with the governor's office and Dr. Sheen on that for years. Finally put it in front of the Senate, and that was actually passed. Part of that act has given us the conversation, taken us into conversation with education. How can we have counselors, teachers, that are geared towards identifying changes? And basically, that's what healthcare is all about. You don't just say, you know what, I know I can diagnose that something is wrong. You look and you try to determine what's different. If you could, right, Dr. Christensen? If you could determine what's different, then the tests are ran to figure out, to confirm a diagnosis or a thought process. And that's what we're trying to get counselors and teachers to start to talk about. What's different about this young person? So let's begin our conversation. So it's a pleasure to be on the panel with you.
Yes, thank you for having me. I am so honored to be here. I felt like I made it. When I got the invite, I was like, I've made it, people. I've made it.
That said, tell us a little bit about who you are.
I am Emanuela Perez Cassius. I am a Virgin Islander first and foremost, and a mother second, but I'm also a community activist here in the Virgin Islands. And I have been in many different hats, many different fields, trying to do the same thing in every field. How do we ensure that our children are connected and feel like a part? Just to ensure that our future has somebody to take on the baton after. So that's what I do. Different spaces, different places, and I'm sure each of you have met me in a different place. I'm like, oh, this is the lady for Boys and Girls Club. Oh, this is the lady for housing. Oh, this is the lady for the board. Oh, this is the lady that belongs to Malika Makil. Or this Makeja Mora. Like, I get it. I'm all those people. And I'm trying to do one thing, which is help make sure that our children understand that the Virgin Islands is their home, and we're going to keep them safe.
And you're also involved in politics in some way, aren't you?
I am. I'm an elected member of the Virgin Islands Board of Education.
There you go, you
yes,
see?
Yes.
That
I tell you,
connection is-
I'm trying to find what's different.
You see?
I'm,
There you
I'm,
go.
I'm running my own diagnostic test and figuring out what's different.
Young lady?
Hello, I'm Zulima Webster. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm like Emanuela. I'm a Virgin Islander first, a Crucian first. Yes, I'm also a certified anger management specialist. I currently am the military family life counselor for the National Guard. And I obviously moved home because I want to make a difference, starting with families, because, you know, I believe most of the issues, I tried originally to stray away even from therapy with children, because I really wanted to focus more on the marriage, the family, the parents, the moms, the dads, the adults. But I just can't stray away because it's such a need here. So I find myself now seeing more adolescents in my private practice. And I get a lot of referrals and I tell people all the time, because they're like, well, why don't you see more children? Because when you see the child, you realize that you really have to see the parent too. Yes. So you gain way more clients, and it's a lot more work. But somebody has to do it. So.
Aisha?
Hello, I am Aisha Williams, and I have been with the Department of Education for the past 17 years. I have been in varying capacities. I started out with the department as an administrative assistant, then transitioned to a special education paraprofessional, and then paraprofessional. After that, earned my degree, went on to become a teacher, and then a positive behavior and intervention district coach. From there, I then went on to, I'm currently the director of the Safe and Healthy Student Programs, formerly known as Alternative Education. I'm very passionate about just looking at the whole child. I like to think of myself as sort of a advocate or champion for the underdog, being with the type of students, the high-risk students that we deal with. And a lot of times, people just think of the students at alternative education in terms of, okay, once you're there, you're sort of sent to, I guess, Alcatraz in a sense, just forgotten about. But it's so much more to our children than that. So it's all about being preventative and utilizing those positive behavior intervention strategies so that a student doesn't have to get to an alternative setting.
Good. And I want to start with you, but let's talk about pediatric care, right? And I know that many of you're also mothers. When you go to your pediatrician, one of the first things that they do is they bring out the tools that actually looks at the child, talks about if there are any challenges. The first thing they do is your hand-eye coordination. I'm sure you guys experience that with your children, right? The hand-eye coordination is that good. Are they walking the right way? Are they eating? Are the weight, is the weight? All those tools, that's even before they get to school. So those tools are actually being developed and spoken about from that age group. So your eyes are on children from that age. Now they go into school. What kind of tools are used? Because you spoke about behavioral health, which I was so happy to hear. So what kind of tools are used in alternative or in the age group that we're speaking about? Let's first speak about that.
In the alternative setting, we serve students from grades 7 through 12. One of the things that we look at is looking to see if our students surveying, and it's not where you have to be a clinician, but it can be done within the classroom, to see if students were affected by any type of adverse childhood event. So we look for things, any type of trauma. And then we also use the strengths and difficulties surveys. Based on the data that we get from that, we then develop a contextualized learning and behavioral plan based on that student's specific need.
Right, and there is an ACE survey, correct?
Yes.
ACE tool that's used. Now, a lot of times you hear ACE, right? It's actually a psychological or psychiatric, or basically behavioral diagnosis. This child has been affected with ACE, adverse childhood events. And sometimes we look at children and we say, they're so rude. True? But why are they rude? Are they rude, or are they having challenges with some of the things that they've experienced in their life? And because of their experiences, now at the end of when they're 16, 17 years, they're quote unquote acting out. But are they indeed acting out, or do they need help? So while the I was trying to go on and on until I said, is he gonna finish here? Okay, so let me just, and I'll start with you, like I said. In reference to ACE, right? Do you see that a lot in the school that you're with right now?
We most definitely do. We see students that may have been affected from something as simple as, not simple, but if their parents were divorced, if where they lived, in terms of being exposed to community violence, gun violence. So if not more than, I would say at least 90% of our students have been affected by adverse childhood experience.
Let me, Zulima, you know, you spoke about family, and sometimes family don't always speak out, but then you speak to the children. Now, children, they say the darndest things, but they tell the truth.
Right.
So what have you learned speaking with families? Maybe some things have been uncovered when you speak to a child. Tell us the differences and how you've been able to influence the care based on that.
So, yeah, I will start by saying the communication you just said now children speak out, and they are speaking up and speaking out more than ever before. Where what we learned growing up was like, you don't speak until spoken to, or a child is seen and not heard, or a woman is seen and not heard, and all of that is changing. And yeah, the kids are really, I didn't like how you spoke to me. I didn't like when you said that, or this teacher told me that I was stupid, and I talked back to the teacher. And it's like, how do you tell your child then, well, don't do that. Listen to what a teacher says. You know, that's not what we're doing anymore, but which is great. But it definitely starts at home, the communication, even, well, the mental health, the self-care, because we talked about it last week. Well, you know, there was a panel last week that talked about, as parents, taking care of yourself is so important, because when you are not taken care of, and then you're stressed out, and you know, you're depressed, or you have anxiety, or whatever else it is that you're carrying the baggage of trauma and not going to therapy, and then you're not realizing the ways that your children are observing and sucking this up from you, this energy. So you're backlashing at your children, and then they come to school, and then they take that out on a peer, or on an administrator, or on a teacher. And so, yeah, it makes them look, and people are quick to, you know, diagnose. And when I say people, I will say therapists, school psychologists, quick to diagnose, oppositional defiant disorder. But really and truly, yeah, when you look at the family dynamics, the child is going to communicate how he's being communicated to, or she.
That's right.
So
I'm actually going to ask you a little later, all of you, and think about this from now, is really and truly give some advice to parents, because we have a lot of parents in this room, but we don't even know how many parents are looking at us on Facebook, right? So think of things that you would actually give advice from a young age, from an adolescent phase, and pre-adulthood, because you know our youth that are in college is still children, still our children. They haven't completely separated. So just give that some thought. You spoke about, Aisha spoke about it, you spoke about it, and that's the influence of violence and behavior and long and lasting effects of that. I know you've done a lot of work in the community, Manuela. Tell us a little bit of some of the things that you've done and some of the things that you've experienced outside.
So first of all, I want to applaud the fact that we're starting to notice that our children's voices are being heard from a perspective of not rude but informed, right? Because I remember growing up in the Virgin Islands, born and raised Virgin Island, and I love my people. But when you're a child who's always had a voice and never afraid to use it, I was put in many corners. I mean, and I know you maybe not believe this when you see the end product, but I was one of those children that felt I had an opinion, and I'm going to let you hear it, right? So when I went to the States, I worked with the Boys and Girls Club in Metro Atlanta, and for the first time I recognized the power we give our young people when you allow them to speak. I spent most of my young life learning how to stay in my lane. Manuela, stay in your lane. You're a child, Chiran, don't be this. Chiran, do this. When I went to the States, I recognized empowering people to use their voice from young gives, one, the society a very informed way to make decisions because you're hearing what they want and what they need. And secondly, it gives them the empowerment from young to know my voice matters, right? I don't have to wait until I'm in trouble.
But Emmanuel, that brings me to say, you know, like when we were younger and then we growing up and you hear people say, my gosh, that little child will talk a lot.
That's me. Every report card.
But listen, then the next thing would be is, that must be a Yankee.
Yeah! Confessions. Right? Confessions. So I was raised by what we call a Yankee. So yes.
But you know, but now we're embracing it.
Now we're embracing, so I'm happy to hear that it's coming out, right? Because people like me are working to intentfully ensure that our children know how to use their voices, right? So I worked at the Boys and Girls Club in Frederiksted. Currently, I mentor a program where I teach high school students to mentor first graders and learn in teaching how to read. But that's not about building literacy for me. That's about helping the teens to recognize, well, I have power within this, and I have the power to say something. And they do this strategic, thank you, clap for them, right? Like, we're giving it to them because they're what's coming out. Tita, when we talk about making sure that our children...
Speak up.
Oh, sorry. So customer talking. I'm trying to be a lady, y'all. When we talk about our children and having spaces, that's exactly what I think we need to do more here now. We need to really listen when we hear it, not disregard it or shut it off. It goes back to mental health. When you have a 5-year-old who learns how to express themselves to an adult, it helps them to be able to express themselves to their peers. If I could speak truth to power, then I could definitely speak truth to peers. So I can tell my peer, I don't like it. I don't have to box them off to tell them I don't like it. I don't have to turn to violence. I could use my words more and more. And that's a training, that's a skill. Just like we go to college to learn other things, communication is a skill that should not wait until they become a teenager to start to create and develop.
So, excellent. Now, we speak about violence, right? So let's shift a little bit. We, within the last 2.5 years, I think we suffered in a different way. The violence wasn't there outright, but children were asked to stay home. Parents were asked to stay home. But they also experienced some form of ACE because they were isolated. And so what are you seeing now in schools?
I think what we're currently seeing with the outbreaks of fights and so forth, and this just isn't unique to our setting because we're seeing this nationwide, so it's important to note that. We have to bear in mind, like you just said, we were shut down for almost 2 going on 3 years. And then it's sort of like, okay, we're outside now. And you didn't, just think about it in terms of during that time, you had students that lost family members, whether it might have been to a natural cause or violence, and not having that opportunity to truly grieve. Because let's say even in terms of going out to a funeral where that, the capacity was limited because dealing with COVID. So what we do a lot of is teach self-regulation skills and use a lot of restorative practices. Help our students to understand, well, if you're feeling anxious, what are the signals that you recognize within your body? Do you start to sweat? Do you feel, does your stomach, is it twisting, is it turning? And help them to be able to identify those triggers and be able to positively be able to communicate that.
Now, we're speaking about you working at the alternative school, but how is that being spread throughout education? What are you doing in your because you have a lot of skills. Love hearing what you're speaking about. How is it actually being shared throughout education?
Several ways. With our program, we do outreach. It doesn't happen, honestly, as often as we want to, just because of shortcomings with staff. But we also meet in terms of leaders come together, and where we're now having discussions in terms of employing trauma-informed practices throughout the district, developing early warning indicators to look in students such as absences, specific behaviors, their grade progress. So developing that early warning indicator system so that we can then develop I want to say the necessary interventions, and universals in a multi-tier system of support to address those needs.
And it go back to prevention.
Yes.
It may be starting, but you can actually get to the point where you stop some of the crisis from actually taking place. So thank you for that. Zulema, speaking about the fact that parents sometimes see, but sometimes take a step back and say that, no, this is not happening, right? They see, like you're talking about in schools, behavior changes are there. How do you get parents to accept that there are things that need the intervention, like you spoke about, Aisha, that intervention needs to take place? What do you do? How can you help some of the parents with that?
That's a very good question, so loaded. How do you get, I guess that's the trickery. If I knew that. Well, because I guess it's more about support than anything else. Support, education, informing them. Because really and truly, when it comes to therapy, you can't force anybody to do anything. Therapy is really voluntary, and I'm telling you, that is the hardest part of my job and why I was resistant to working with children in the first place, because it is hard to get parents on board. When you work with a child, it's easy. It's easy to work with children. They will listen to what you have to say. If you speak to them in a way that they want to be spoken to, they're going to suck up what you're saying. They're going to want to do what it is that you're advising them to do. However, getting the parent on board.
Okay, just a second. We now have our assistant director who's going to come up and sing. I couldn't resist that. I couldn't resist that.
Yes,
but,
I know.
Thank you for that. Aisha, I'm going to go back to you, because it actually sometimes, or a lot of times, start with education. Education identifies it, and then how do you get the parents to agree to see a counselor? Let's start there.
I want to say, honestly, it's about building relationships. Because once you can connect with a parent, you develop that sense of trust. And students are with us throughout most of the day. So I think once a parent trusts you, they're a little more open to hearing, okay, I think we should check this out. And even, for example, when we do, parental conferences or disciplinary meetings, it's always in the form of a circle. So we're coming to the table as equals. So I think building relationships, and we also do things like parenting classes. So with that, parents come to the table with, with strategies and look-fors.
Okay. Now, you said something in terms of disciplinary meetings, and I want to go back to that. But before we do that, I want Emanuela to speak also about some of the things that you have encountered working in the Boys and Girls Club, because that's where children get together and say things that you have to pay attention to. So how have you been able to learn from them and actually intervene when hearing some of the things that have been concerning to you?
So I guess one of the blessings of working in after school and working with families within the community is that you get to recognize what part of the systematic problem is. And I'm a systematic thinker. This is probably why I'm hopping all over the place. But because I want to try to figure out how do we align these systems. The E and she today is about equity. That is absolutely how we get it. We create access for them to be able to gain it. Can I do just a quick little teacher moment?
You can go right
I'm
ahead,
an educator by
You dropped your
by
don't
trade.
let her
Oh,
though,
no,
please.
don't drop my dot
Yeah.
clot.
Yeah.
Put it in there. So I need you guys to think about equity for a little bit like this. Our systems are designed where we're standing right here. The systems ain't moving. However, all of you have to get to it. You are in front here, so you're closer to me, right? If you had to throw a paper right now into this hoop, you would hit this hoop. But the people in the back row, my system is here. You are there. How do you gain access to this? And that's where equity comes in. We have to be able to create our equitable moments where it's not always standard in the same space. And we have to think about it in that notion when we're building our systems and we're working within our systems. Because as great as education is, everybody don't have the same access to the same education because the education system is not moving. So we, as a system creator, as a system molder, as a system workers, have to figure out how do we make our system shift a little bit more to the back so that the sisters in the back could catch this hoop. How do we make sure that the sisters on the side could catch this hoop? Because the sisters on the side can't even see my hoop. At least you in the back could see my hoop. You in the front have access to my hoop. And this is a free hoop. So for us to say we want to give access and we want to trust and give these things to these parents, we have to make sure the systems are in the space where the parents are. Instead of always saying, if you come here though, if you have this seat, you would make this. And it's fair because this hoop ain't moving. That's not the same thing. And so when I think about what we could do, it's all about equity.
Excellent.
That's a teacher in me. That's a teacher in me.
Excellent. But let's add to that, because in order for it to be equitable, education cannot do it by itself.
No.
Human services can't do it by itself. Health can't do it by itself. We could go on and on. So we need nonprofits.
Yes.
We need private. We need government. And let's talk about it. We need community
Yes.
to do it.
Yes, sir.
We need community. Okay?
Absolutely.
So, okay, I want to go back to talk about the discipline conversation that you had. And the reason why, you know I was going back there, right? The reason why I say that is because Nicole and I speak a lot about, for example, we had edibles, like right after school opened back. We don't know what these children were doing when they were home. My parents were at work, right? But we did have a high number of children trying edibles. And this is the age group where they will be inquisitive. This is where they experiment. True? True. Okay, so how do you discipline or how do you counsel? What is the difference? And how do you determine who's disciplined? How do you determine who's counsel? And what is the effect of discipline in a child for something that they were experimenting with, and the effects of counseling them through that? Tell us a little bit about what decisions are being made, how you're making those decisions, and talk to us.
Well, it's not always about being punitive, because like was said before, you always have to look at the why. The student discipline policy is very black and white, but again, you still have to ask. We're working on it. You still have to ask that why. What was the reason that a child, that Johnny did this? And even when you determine that why, does it still mean that then there are no consequences? So it still goes back to educating. With the edibles, we have to educate our students and staff in terms of why edibles are unhealthy. Educate staff in terms of these are the signals that you look for to see if a child might have been under the influence of edibles. And no one situation in terms of discipline is the same, but again, determining that why, and then thinking about the necessary consequences.
Okay, so I like to use the word accountability. Accountability can actually be where you discipline. Accountability can also be where they're held accountable in a different way because they are now going into a program that's going to allow them. So you're still establishing to them something was done and something was done that shouldn't have happened. However, what we're going to do is we're going to shift you from this block where we're disciplining you. We're going to shift you a little bit over here, thinking outside of the box, and we're going to put you in a channel in which we are going to guide you, we're going to counsel you, and when you come back, if it's consistent, because you talked about that, if it's consistent, that's when you know something else is going on here. You have to look a little bit deeper, right? So that's just who I am, but I really wanted to say that because Nicole and I have had that discussion. What do? Do you discipline or do you actually counsel, and where do you go? So I'm happy that you said that you actually do that background, you speak a little bit, you get a little bit more information. In terms of accountability and how because you basically, Aisha, as well as you, Zulima, but talk to us about accountability in when you're sitting counseling families, in terms of how do you?
So, that's a good question, because when it comes to accountability, it's like if I was accountable, or if a parent was accountable for a behavior that their child has, then accountability a lot of the times feels like blame. So if I have to be accountable and I have to acknowledge that I knew this was going on or whatever the case is, then I'm also acknowledging that I play a part in it, right? And that's something that's hard for parents to accept, you know? It's hard for people to be accountable because then they're like, okay, well, now the blame is on me, now all eyes on me for what I've done, and now I have to, have some explaining to do. And that's tough. Getting that to happen is tough, but I think, like she said, creating a safe space that's a trusting place for me to be able, I've had teenagers come to me and I have to do an evaluation. I have to ask, do you use drugs? Do you, and I have to go down the list. Alcohol, marijuana, edibles, vape, all these things. Somebody could be 16 saying that they vape and their parent is right there. Their parent knows, but their parent just have their head down like, I hope he don't say everything. Well, sometimes it's just one drink, like if we're at a party with our family, because I'd rather he drink at home with me than to, or whatever the case is. But and I have to let them know, what my parameters are as far as, why I'm here. And I'm not the police, I do have certain things that I do have to report and will, but at the same time, like, I'm here to help you. And this is a safe place. I'm not here to judge you. We're all gonna work on this together, This is a team, and we're all gonna play a part.
Plus it's also education and teaching, because one drink turns out to be 2 drinks.
Oh, yeah.
Turns out to be 3 drinks. And then when you get to it, an alcoholic is formed at the age of 13 sometimes.
Right.
Or younger, and we've definitely experienced that. Let's speak about some successes. Because I'm sure you have had some challenging moments, you've had some sad encounters, but I'm sure you've had some successes. So tell us, I'm going to start with you, Emmanuel, this time, but tell us about some of the encounters that you've had that have really taken your heart, but at the same time you've actually seen growth and you've seen success.
I'm so happy you asked this question. Seriously, because we don't spend enough time celebrating the good things that happen, especially now in political season here in the Virgin Islands. I don't know about y'all, but I think if I take another dump of all of the things we're not doing and all of the reasons why we're probably not going to make it past 2024, it's draining. So there are successes. There's so many successes in our children specifically.
Yeah.
I know we're talking about learning loss, but do you know how many more entrepreneur students we have in our Virgin Islands school system? Are you clear on the amount of athletes, performers, dancers, and singers that we have in our community? And I'm not talking about they dancing on just Island Center stage. We have sisters and brothers whose children are traveling to go away to these places and come back. And you know where it came from? It came from the seeds that were planted by our teachers. Right? It came from those spaces within them same dilapidated school buildings.
I'm glad she did say
I was about to, you know. No. Dilapidated school buildings that we talk about with all of the mold and the nastiness, they're still planting seeds of greatness inside of some of our children that I don't think that we're getting a chance to recognize, right? And right now I'm working in the Virgin Islands Housing Authority. Housing right now has spearheaded this plan called the Bright Path Plan, and from now on they are addressing resident wellness from 6 dimensions. This is a government agency I'm talking about, y'all, not nonprofit. We're looking at individual wellness as the basis for how we address our residents within these housing communities, and not what you think is good enough for them. If your wellness is you and your son drinking inside of your house, that's your wellness. I'm not here to judge you, but I am here to give you the options and the places in this community that are going to help you when you hit that road. Not that you ain't going to hit it, because we know from data that 1 drink will become 2 drinks, right? So let me let you know, AA exists in Lutheran Church. Health has this service for you. Call Human Services if you think that your child, you can't be able to communicate with them, because they can be able to. We're addressing these needs in a different way. I'm informing you, and then I tell you it's up to you. It's not up to me, no judgment. That's the life you want to live.
So before we go to
That's a
Lima,
success.
right, you're speaking about something that I speak about a lot in health, and that is leveraging our grants.
Yes.
Just because we have federal grants doesn't mean that the Department of Human Services federal grants is only for the Department of Human Services. Department of Health federal grants is only for health. Department of Education's federal grants is only for, but we have so many similar things: education, health, and human services. The 3 of us, more than anybody else, have commonalities.
Yes.
And we can sit down and figure out how can we leverage the grants by speaking with the federal partners to ensure that we're doing it the right way, but we are also creating opportunities to put and spend the money. But I always say, put the operations in place, the money can get spent, you know.
Yes.
But you have to do that piece.
Yes, absolutely.
Sulima, successes.
Well, mine is, you know, on a smaller level. but in the 3 years since I've moved back to the Virgin Islands, I had a little part-time contract with I facilitated a Strength in Families program under the village. It's a program that they had. And so I saw families, and there was one child that I saw through Strengthening Families. The next year, I had a contract with Greater Changes, which I still do have a contract with Greater Changes, but I was seeing children in YRC for anger management. I saw same kid there, ended up in YRC for a short period of time, and now as the military family life counselor for the National Guard, he's a part of an after-school program, one of the most well-behaved, and he is current. I see he cut his hair, and he just joined ROTC in high school. So now he's in high school and in ROTC and just well-mannered, and it's just in the 3 years, just the transition of him and he said he wants to join the military, which is amazing. So
amazing, right? Yeah. Excellent. Now, Aisha, I have to tell you that my heart goes out to you, because I know that you live in an environment, and where we work is where we live. Yeah. And you live in an environment in which you interact with individuals who have experienced over 90% that are high risk, that have experienced some adverse childhood event. and has brought about their reactions today, right?
Yes.
But I'm sure that you've actually seen some successes. I am sure that you have. I'm sure that you've seen some successes. So go ahead and tell us
Yes,
about
we
your
have.
success.
In the past 3 years, with my team and I, and me being director, we piloted a program actually during the height of COVID. And we actually, one of the goals of the program is to have our students transition back to their home schools. Some may have to, because of age, they may have to be referred to like adult education or just transition into the work world. But with that program, we had students, I'll refer just even back to last year, I had 8 boys that actually were able to graduate with their home school. So they were able to take part in, graduation, and just that restoring that self of hope for them is just
Amazing.
Yeah.
Right? Look at the smile. Look at the smile on her face. Look at the smile. I mean, wonderful. Now, I have to say that it brings me back to why we're here today. And we're talking about children being successful. Look at you guys. Look at the panelists that we had before. You know, we are products of the Virgin Islands. And we don't know, maybe Maurice was beating her child in the house and we just didn't know about it. We know that. We know that. We know that. But look at Sydney at this point, and look at her other 2 children. You understand? But we brought them back here, and we're hearing success stories. So we're asking you about success, but we're living. Today, last Friday, we were living every single day. In the Virgin Islands, we are living success stories. So I think I have only about a half a minute left. So this is what I really want for you to do. Hope for the future. Just give me one sentence that you would think of that would be your hope for the children of the Virgin Islands. Emanuela.
My hope for the children of the Virgin Islands is that our mindsets begin to shift in a way of hope.
I like
The adults. I mind. That's what I want. I want the adults' mindset to shift in a hopeful mindset, because then we're going to be able to plant those seeds in our children.
I love it.
My hope is that children will learn to communicate kindly with one another.
I would have to say, mine is not so much hope, but to instill in every student's parents, everyone that we encounter, that the world is going to break you sometimes, but it's what you do afterwards to be good.
Correct. Excellent. Excellent. So thank you so much. So to teach the children of the world, but to teach the children of the Virgin Islands, you're going to encounter challenges, obstacles. How do you now overcome those obstacles? And we spoke a lot about failure the last time we met, right? But, and we speak about that a lot these days, failure. And failure isn't bad. Before, no one wanted to quote unquote fail. I don't like to fail either. Failure is not an option, right? Makita, failure is not an option. Correct. However, there are times when you're growing, sometimes when you're learning, you fail, but you can't stop because you have failed. You only failed at one little thing. You now need to get back up and figure out how you do it the next time, and you do it better.
And we have to give grace for them when they get back up.
That's right.
That's us. That's our job. We've got to give them grace.
Thank you all so much for being part of this panel. I think we have some question and answers. Can we go to question and answers? So first, these young ladies, before we even go to question and answer, weren't they great? Yes. Wonderful. Royette?
Hi, thank you guys. I have just maybe some food for thought. I have some interaction with the public school because my grandkids go to school. And what I see is a lot of missed opportunity in the prevention section. For example, there's a lot of, like they said in the last panel, you Google and you can find resources. For example, there's a lot of bullying. And kids just mean to each other, right? But in the school setting, there's a lot of bullying, and for some people they can take it, and others can't. There's a lot of resources, just a simple Google, toolkits that I do not see happening in the schools at all. I had there's also data regarding preventing lesson and discipline by meditation rooms or discipline rooms where these counselors take the kids and, you know, they listen to music or something, and that has reduced disciplinary action by huge amounts. The data is out. I don't see that happening at all. It may be happening. I don't see it. And I'm saying these are missed opportunities. I've been to a school. The kids are there from, let's say, 7:45. School starts at 8:15. They're all in the auditorium just wilding out, just running up and down. It's a missed opportunity to me to talk to them, some meditation music, some empowerment words, just missed opportunities.
Excellent.
And I was wondering, what are your thoughts about those kind of things? One more thing. I went to the counselor's room in one of the schools, and the counselor was in a little room in the back of something, and it was like, it was like a garage. You know, it's just not a place that kids would be happy to go and reflect on their behavior or anything like that. So just food for thought.
Yes, I appreciate that. And your missed opportunity that you're seeing in the schools is an opportunity for parents to gain, right? Like, figure out where in your schools need these levels of support. This is where you come in. The school system is, I love all my educators because they train their best with what they have, but they need support. And those are the spaces that we as parents could step in. 30 minutes at lunchtime to run an activity during your kids' lunch will take 60 students out of that cafeteria that where they're running around wild. And we could have these discussions without being buckled or barred by all of the restrictions teachers have, because lawsuits can happen. But you as a parent, join your PTAs, get involved. And I don't mean join your PTAs just to say your name on the list. Figure out where you could step in and help. They need you. The missed opportunities that you are seeing are open opportunities for parents, and I mean all of us.
Excellent.
Yes.
Now, it goes back to the community. It's not just the parents or the teachers. Thank you for that. The community have to step in. Sulima, you were going to say something?
No, I wasn't.
There's schools that do that, but maybe, and I would admit there's more work to be done, but there's schools where it does happen, where, for example, we use like even the 10 minutes of mindfulness, where you might start with a little prayer or meditation. But when you say one, you say two. Cultural-wise, I don't think that sometimes we as a people, we're always open to utilizing, let's say, yoga or mindfulness. So again, it goes back to that change of mindset.
But it has to start somewhere. And so you just planted a seed for those that aren't doing it. So let's hope that, talk about hope, that individuals that are listening also learn from this experience that we're having today, so that they can make the changes where the changes. So parents get more involved, join PTA, not just to see your name on it, but to be active and figure out what we need to do. Okay.
Hi, thank you so much for being on this panel. I had a quick question. We talked about counseling and services for women who are experiencing mental health issues or just wanted to talk. But I read in the news that they're identifying that children also are suffering from anxiety from as young as maybe 8 years old, and they're beginning to screen children. Mm-hmm. So what mental health services do we have for children, and are we thinking about starting to screen children for example, anxiety issues? And I'm very careful because in the African American community, which we are majority, we don't necessarily want to place labels, but we still want to get help. So.
Okay, so I can take that, and of course, Zulima, I'll let you take that as well. And Aisha, I'm sure you have some information. But in terms of Department of Health, I'll start with MCH, Maternal Child Health. And so we've now started a program, and it's a combined. We have a program, and Janice, please feel free to chime in on this one, okay? We have a program where we have face-to-face behavioral health counseling, but we also have a program where we're doing it virtually, because that's very, very important. So we're asking pediatricians to join us to get into the virtual arena so that we can identify some of the factors from a behavioral health standpoint. And I'm sure that Kimberly can speak to some of the things that she does in even a younger age than 8, because it didn't start, if you've seen it at 8, it didn't start at 8. So we have to figure out how far back you can come through. Janice, is there anything else that you want to add to that?
Starting with screenings in the Head Start.
In a Head Start, right, we spoke about that, correct. And Kimberly, anything that you want to add?
Well, of course, you know I want to add something. So Head Start is an amazing aspect of things, and it's not just an early childhood program. It wraps around the child and the family itself. So mental health services, nutrition services, we make sure that they go and get all their nutrition and as well as their medical appointments. So Head Start starts from 3 and 4-year-olds. And so that's why that program is an exceptional prevention program, because you will see what's going to happen in 2nd and 3rd grade when that 3 and 4-year-old steps into Head Start. I can tell you right now, being in the classroom and have worked it, you will see already 3-year-olds what's going to happen in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade. And right now, our juvenile justice population is decreasing a little bit. Not really sure why. Right now, we only have 2 in YRC. So for me, it's not about YRC, because at that time, it's not late, but sometimes they only come in for 2 or 3 months. So let's make sure we're on the front end of it before they even get in there in the first place to ensure that we have the services they need.
I'll take one more question. I see Nemi's in the back. Oh, Dr. Christensen, and then Nemi, and then we'll break, okay?
We should begin teaching our children health education. And also we spoke about behavioral change. I'm an advocate against out-of-school suspension because I don't believe it solves any purpose. So how do you feel about intervention in the school opposed to out-of-school suspension? Thank you.
Aisha, may I ask you to take that one?
In terms of social emotional learning, mental health, well-being, I think that can start from as early as Head Start. Once you just do it in terms of where it's developmentally appropriate. Regarding in-school suspension, that really depends, in my perspective, depending on, again, you have to look at the situation and severity, because based even on a VIDE discipline policy, which we're guided by, you have to look at in terms of the level, and then depending on the infraction, what the consequence has to be. So it's not really so black and white. But in anything that even in terms of administering those consequences, still providing those necessary supports.
Right, and remember, we're also planting seeds today, Nemi. We're planting seeds today as well to see where we grow from here. Dr. Christensen, you had a question?
Is that a question, comment? The child's brain develops almost entirely by the time they're age 3. And what happens from 0 to 3 determines a lot on their ability to learn, their behavior, and all of that. And I just want to point out that we really need to have some more programs that work with parents in that very critical age. Because we've been talking about from 3 and up. But a lot of what that child is going to be starts between
Younger.
0 and 3.
Right, and we spoke about the tools that the pediatricians use from 6 months, 8 months, 18 months, 3 years to determine if something is happening. So I wholeheartedly agree with you. And going back
It's
to
parenting, though. It's also parenting.
Right.
It's a very simple thing that parents need to do with a baby at that age.
Right.
You got to
Now-
talk to them and cuddle them and to have their brain develop.
And
But
sometimes-
parents don't know how
Thank you.
important that is.
And I think sometimes what we do, we have to think of what worked, because don't tell me, oh, well, it didn't work before. There even is one little piece of what didn't work that was working that we can bring back today. So I think that what you have done is you've left us with a lot of homework. Haven't you? You've left us with a lot of homework. So we won't forget your questions. We won't forget the thoughts that you put in our heads. And like I said before, this is just a start of where we are. And I want to thank every one of you for being part of the panel and being able to share. Thank you for what you do on a daily basis. Thank you.
Can we give them another round of applause, please? Aisha Williams, Zulima Webster, Emanuela Perez, and our moderator, Commissioner of the Department of Health, Justa Tita Encarnacion. We're going to have a few videos to share with you on resilience as we transition into our next panel presentation.
I'm Chantal Noel. I'm the Director of Behavioral Health, Alcoholism, and Drug Dependency Services at the Department of Health. So I never wanted to leave home, but educational opportunities were always big in my family. They wanted us to stay home, but they also wanted us to have worldly experiences. So when it came to training, I decided to go to the States, get my undergraduate degree, I moved back home. My master's degree, I moved back home, and then my PhD, and now I'm back home. I am a Virgin Islander through and through. How do I help with the change? I am not the change for myself. I realize that it's going to take a team, it's going to take great effort, and everyone is going through something. If I can't find the answer, someone else on the island can find the answer. We tend to look on the outside, whether it be bringing individuals who are not Virgin Islanders here, but I know that we have the capacity, the ability to build what we've already started here. I've joined a really strong team, and I'm excited for the things that are coming for the Virgin Islands. I'm excited for our crisis mobile team. I'm excited for the 988 initiative. I'm excited for the new psychiatrists we've hired. I am just all around excited. We are doing the work, and there's nothing more empowering than coming home and making change.
I was able to kick cancer's ass not once, but twice. Hello, my name is Luz Bellado Webster, and I am a two-time breast cancer survivor. I was first diagnosed in 2012 at age 57. And then again, the cancer came back in 2015 at age 60. Cancer was very challenging. However, with the support of my friends, my family members, and even strangers, I was able to continue fighting. They motivated me, gave me a lot of encouragement, and I was able to kick cancer's ass. Not once, but twice. I fought, I conquered. I am in remission for 7 years. I am a two-time cancer survivor.
Hi, my name is Anais Cruz, and I am the mother of superhero baby Logan Cruz. When Logan was diagnosed in December, he was immediately admitted to ICU because his levels were actually very shocked that Logan was still alive. And they actually told me that night, I remember so vividly, they told me had I not bring Logan in that night, he would not have made it through the night. And I would have gotten up and found him, in his crib, unresponsive. It was rough living in the hospital for 2.5 years. Logan was 7 months, he wasn't able to speak, couldn't tell me what hurts, what didn't hurt. Logan learned how to walk, crawl, first words, everything in the hospital. The treatments were very intense because he had what's called infant ALL, and he had the aggressive form of leukemia. So his treatments were more intense than what an average person with leukemia would, be treated with. Morning of January 7th at around 8:30, 8:40, he passed away in my arms. I have not really shared the details of, leading up to him passing, but it was very traumatic, very scary experience. But I knew that Logan had fought and gave his best. So, as hard as it is, the struggle of staying positive and keeping a healthy mindset, I turn to the Logan Miracle Foundation, and it brings me comfort and peace in helping other people. I know Logan is so proud of me. It's okay. The purpose of the Logan Miracle Foundation is to help bring awareness to childhood cancer in the U.S. Virgin Islands and abroad. And they, unfortunately, will be other kids like Logan. And I want to be the person here to tell that other mom, that other parent, that it is okay, that, you're not in this alone. And there's more superheroes like Logan. There's more superheroes like me. And I feel like if I can do it and I can fight through this, so can you.
Hello, I am Summer Sibley Brown, the founder and executive director of Virgin Islands Good Food Coalition. Tell young people all the time that any and everything is possible. And I was in this moment within myself, like, do what's easy for Summer, or do what's right by your students, to show them that with a little bit of grit and stick-to-itiveness, that we could achieve something. And even if it wasn't what the moon was, if we shot for the stars, we would end up in a constellation together. Today I'm happy to say we went from $0 to 0 cents to having a $600,000 program budget. We're still fighting for an operation budget, but really, good food is the gift that found me. My hope is that Good Food gives to the community three things really specifically. It helps capture our cultural identity, where we're maintaining our foodways, and we have Miss Pull, Mami, Tamran, Sugar Apple, Custard Apple available for generations. That it brings wealth to the community, that we figure out how to use food and agriculture as a pillar in our economic development. So it's not just tourism, it's not just, in this case, refining, it's not just large economic development by attracting outside companies, but like that the food system is one of those pillars and drivers of the economy, and that it gives us health, right? Food is nutrition, it is wealth, it is health. We need to reclaim our bodies, and I feel that the way we do that, especially as a person who struggles with obesity and food and all the wrong things we have learned to eat, or the wrong pathways, that this is the gift of health for the next generation.
Is my mic on? Yes, yes. Before I comment on the videos, I heard a cell phone ring. Was my ears? Point the, is that person next to you? Oh, point the person out. We're gonna practice the song on the back porch. We're gonna practice my favorite karaoke song, Bob Marley and Lauryn Hill, Turn Your Lights Down Low. So I'll help, but we'll practice on the outside. So I'm gonna work my way through the videos. First of all, Summer, Tamron, what's on my ears? Tamron? Tomlin. Listen, I know I'm on St. Croix, right? But Tamron, Queens, Tamron. Okay. And then let's just give a round of applause to our superhero mom and our superhero Logan. I mean, when you talk about the strength of a mother, right? Because I'm not a mommy, but I have a great mommy. My mommy's actually watching right now. But mothers, I know you would do anything for your children, and, always being there for your children. So we certainly applaud the superhero mommies for all that you do. Yes, please stand. Our raffle prize winner, right? Yes. And then we are in October, Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and we know that we have our survivors. And I mean, I know so many breast cancer survivors, and I'm always like lost for words at their strength. You know, sometimes we think we're having a bad day or we're going through a bad period in our lives, and then when I hear some of these stories, I'm just like, oh my goodness, that's nothing, right? But it's not to take away from anything that you are personally dealing with. Just know that as a woman, we are strong. Stronger than we should be at times. Sometimes we have no choice, but the goal of today, again, is to make sure that we can be there for one another. I know it's often difficult if there's a difference in opinion or if we feel we don't like a person. We may not really know why we don't like a person, but because of assumptions or things that we think we know that may be incorrect, we form these thoughts in our heads. So I'm just encouraging everyone again, before you leave here today, connect with someone that you may not have known before you came to this beautiful castle. A little warm, but beautiful castle. So we are going to just practice one more time. Tamarin. So I do believe that we are ready for, I'm going to just continue on, right? I digress. So we're going to have another She Talk, and I love these She Talks. And Shulanda Simmons, I had to practice because I said, Shulanda, I am not going to mess up the pronunciation of your name. So we have Shulanda and we have Giovanni Peter, and they're going to talk about girlfriendism. I just love it. It's going to be a guide to, oh, there's music? Okay, we could play the music. You want to go back out? You walking out to music? No. Oh, they didn't tell me. Okay. A guide to strategically building your tribe and recognizing the power of collaboration. Now, this is one that I really love because it takes a village, it takes a tribe, it takes a circle, it takes all of us. We can't do it by ourselves. One hand don't clap, right, Queens? Okay, so we are going to get right into this. I do believe we have a video that we're going to see. Can anyone, and I promise you'll get a prize for this, where did I say I would go if I won the lot? Oh, okay.
How many of you guys saw yourself in the video there? Raise your hand. High and proud. In our world, we call them girlfriends. Hey, girlfriends. We wanted to take time to say thank you for inviting us here to talk about girlfriendism and finding your tribe. I think we all find them in different ways. And what's nice about this day where we have all these women here together is we're defying the stereotypes that women can't come together. Isn't that right, Giovanni?
As we know in our society, every time you think of women coming together, you think of, well, they portray us as being catty, not being able to do anything together, bringing each other down, not supporting each other, and we are here to make sure that everybody remembers that is not us. We are who we say we are, and we are the ones who are going to lift and empower each other.
Yes. So I know a lot of you have heard about Girlfriendism in the community, and Kimmy, who is the CEO and founder of Girlfriendism, does a lot, which is why she isn't able to be here, and she sent the two of us, so hopefully we'll be able to do her some justice.
And that is the power of Girlfriendism also. She's not available to do something, so guess what? She put it out, and we were able to respond and be able to come here and speak to you.
So how many of you guys, when you think of Girlfriendism, just scream out one word, top of mind, what comes to mind when you think of Girlfriendism? Support. Support. What else? Sisterhood. Anything else? Empowerment. Laughter.
Yes, a lot of it.
Trust. Fun.
Lots of it.
Yes, lots of it. And love, right? So I would like you guys, when we start talking about how do you find your tribe, to go on a little journey with me real quick, okay? If everyone could just close your eyes, take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. You're at the airport. You have 2 suitcases. You're getting ready to board a flight. You've boarded the flight, and you're about to travel for 10 hours to a state or a country where you know no one. New place, new people, all of it is new. So tell me, when you arrive there, how do you find your tribe? You're lost? You ain't know nobody.
But you don't know anybody yet.
Yes.
Yet.
So you can open your eyes. And the reason I give you guys this analogy is that's pretty much what I did many, many years ago. I left the Virgin Islands where I have this huge community. And I went someplace where I didn't know anybody. It was a new place, and I had to find my tribe, right? Some of us are able to stay home and find our tribe among our people. Some of us have to go away to find ourselves first in order to be able to find our tribe. And so Girlfriendism truly begins with you first, and what are your values, and what do you want for your life. And Giovanni and I were talking about the topic, and she says her tribe has shifted a little bit in recent years.
It has.
So how did you find your old tribe, and how are you finding your new tribe?
So I told Yolanda that I believe that there are tribes there are people for different stages in your life, and not everybody is meant to go on every journey with you, and you are not meant to go on everyone else's journey either. So it doesn't mean that just because you have found a different tribe or you're transitioning to something new, it doesn't make it a bad thing. It's not a bad reflection on you or a bad reflection on the people that you were or are going to be around. For me, my husband was deployed a couple years ago, and I found myself going to work out at the only gym on the island that provided childcare at the time. And so unintentionally, I met Kanuma, Mariana, and now Yolanda, and that they became my tribe. I was not necessarily looking for a tribe. I just wanted to work out, but I was put in that place for that reason. And it has only been positive since then. It has only been positive. I am from St. Thomas originally, so I did not necessarily have a huge support system over here, but I have been adopted, of course, by the Cruzians. I have been adopted, and I really appreciate and I am grateful for all of the opportunities and all of the blessings that I have had. Again, like I said, the stereotypes surrounding women in our community, it is not the greatest. It is not. And it is empowering and uplifting to be around people who empower and uplift you, who see the things in you that you don't even see in yourself sometimes, who bring out the best in you and only genuinely want the best for you. There is no ulterior motive. It is all love. And the thing is, Sometimes a tribe is made up of people that you don't even know at first. The girlfriendism tribe, I mean, we went to Greece with, what, 31 women, the majority of who I did not even know before the trip, and now I feel like these are my best friends. We are still in our group chat up to today, still supporting each other, still helping each other. And it is just an amazing and uplifting and empowering feeling, knowing that I can call on them for anything, they can call on me for anything, and it's just, the movement is amazing.
Yes.
It is.
And I think a lot of that has to do with value alignment, is really knowing what your core values are, because we are all people, right? But not all your people are your tribe. And your tribe may change in time, it may shift based on your interests. So for example, when I went away and I didn't know anybody and I had to find my tribe, I had to say, what are the values that are important to me that I'm looking for, right? So for example, I went to professional organizations. I went to places that play tennis because I like to play tennis. But you're looking for people who have common interests
Similar goals.
with you, have core values that align with you, and are willing to take that journey with you. And to Giovanni's point, some people will go along the journey, some will fall apart, and that's okay. Some people aren't meant to go on the journey with you, right? It's not a bad thing. Sometimes we just grow. It reminds me of a lady I used to work with at the hospital, right? And I loved her to death. But one of the things I always observed with her is that as somebody was trying to do something different, she used to say, but me, you know what I think they're going? I know them from since they used to be 5 years old, and then when they used to do this, and she would run file from the time they were little up to now. Right? And I was like, yeah, but then you're not giving people permission and the grace to be able to try new things, to evolve differently, to do something different than what they have done before.
And to learn lessons, because of course life is all about experience. You don't get the lessons unless you have the experience most times. So.
Yeah, so the tribe going with you evolves definitely, but we have to be able, as women, to give each other the grace and the permission to be able to go on adventures, explore new things, make mistakes, and be there and say, hey girl, that didn't quite work out, but let's keep going, let's keep going. Right? So that's all part of finding your tribe. And what's interesting is we have some girlfriends here, like Giovanni said, that went to Greece with us. And I hope you don't mind, Judy. I didn't know Judy when we went on the trip. We met right before the trip. Now when I see Judy, even though we didn't spend much time together on the trip, there was this one moment on top of the volcano where our souls came together. And I was like, that's my girl. Because there was such a level of vulnerability that we all experienced together, and we grew together. Sana was saying, genuine, and we had therapy sessions.
Yes.
Those are the kind of experiences as women that we go through together when we're able to know, I found my tribe. You know, these women are gonna support me, they're gonna help me, and if I need anything, I go in a WhatsApp and say, hey, I need some help with something, and the responses come right away. Yeah. You wanna add anything else?
I think we have pretty much covered most of it.
Are there any questions from anybody? How do you guys feel? Do you guys have your tribe? Do you know who your tribe is? Yes?
And our tribe is always accepting, so
yes.
feel free to come. We love it.
Yeah, because your tribe doesn't have to be just blood, right? And your tribe doesn't have to be just family, and your tribe doesn't have to be from the place that you're from. I have tribes in Minnesota, in Florida. I'm sure many of you guys have tribes of women that you connect with all over the world whenever you're traveling. So we need not limit ourselves when it comes to girlfriendism. It's definitely a global movement. When we went to Greece, we connected with the African women of Greece, who are African refugees that are first and second generation to Greece, and they aren't treated very well there. But because we knew we wanted to connect with sisters, we connected with them, and now we have those tribes in Greece to keep going. And we help each other not only on a social perspective, but also in business, right? A lot of the women that are in girlfriendism are business owners. They have multiple, Sana's a serial entrepreneur, we all know that. Yes. Melody has her own business, right? Joanna has her own business. And as women, as we're growing and we're starting to create that generational wealth for our kids, it's a great time for us to come together and move forward. I see a hand in the back.
If you had to give a piece of advice to a young person, a daughter, about how to develop this and things to look for, what would be something you would suggest?
That's a perfect question because I have a 23-year-old.
And then I'll answer from a younger perspective.
Yeah, so I'll answer from my 23-year-old. She can answer from a younger perspective. With my daughter, I tell her the value alignment is so important. The people you surround yourself with, and as women, the partners that we choose significantly impact the journey we're going to have after those decisions. And sometimes the people you surround with may appear to be part of your tribe, but you got to look at what they say. You got to look at what they do. And if what they say and what they do don't align, thank you. Keep it moving and find your true tribe. And that's what I instruct my daughter. Hi, Charlene.
And so my daughter is 9. So of course she's in elementary, she's in 5th grade. She's about, oh, mommy, this is my friend, this is my friend. I don't know if this person is gonna be my friend. And for her age group, what I'm telling her now is not about the amount of friends that you have,
but
it is the quality of the friends that you have. I explained to her that friends...
Thank you. It is hot as hell up here. He's an honorary girlfriend because he's looking out to make sure I look good on camera.
I explained to her that friends don't make you feel bad. Friends don't joke at your expense, and it's not too young for her to learn these lessons, because I didn't learn these lessons until I was a lot older, and it took a lot of self-reflecting to realize some of the mistakes that I had made. And so I'm trying to pass some of these lessons on to my younger children. And so I just let her know, don't worry about how many friends. You could have one friend, and as long as that friend is the quality of friend that you need, that's all that matters.
Yes, absolutely. Miss Charlene, you wanted to add?
Just a comment.
Yes.
I really appreciate what you guys have done.
Aww.
What you continue to do, because it's one of the few places that when I go there and I would go with a group of friends, girlfriends.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something that you can do. You take your girlfriends there.
Yep.
And how we can all come together. We're coming from different places, and it all works. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
One of the important things about girlfriendism also is also connecting different resources. So I met Miss Charlene one time, girlfriendism retreat last year that we held here in St. Croix, and the rosewater foot baths and everything, those were so amazing, and it even just connected all of us there again. On a completely different level. Even if we didn't know each other, we were all connected in that one activity.
So one of the things Kimi says is that my girlfriend's closet is a boutique and we have products, but we don't sell anything.
Right.
What we create is an experience when women come in to the boutique. There's a safe space. A lot of the times, if you stop by on a Saturday, there's 3, 4 girlfriends sitting, chatting, having a little Beano, right, Melody? To stay there for 3 hours, but that's what it's about. It's really coming in community with other women, like-minded women, supporting each other, empowering each other. And then the other ancillary things, so I noticed with you guys, you queens here, you all look fashionable,
Yes.
You all look good. We like the external fashion. The nice thing about girlfriendism is not only focused on the beauty that's outside, it's focused on the beauty that's on the inside. So for example, Kimi does soca aerobics. She's into health and wellness, right? Because we all need to feel good. We had some panelists talking about mental health, especially in these times. It can be very, very challenging. So you need to take care of your mental health, take care of your physical health, your emotional health. I've gotten big into crystals. Don't ask me how I got into crystals, right? But they make me feel good, right? They help me. So that's part of girlfriendism, is really finding those people that bring out the best in you and empower you.
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm going to take off my headphones.
I don't think your mic is on. Is it on?
Yes, please.
Not everyone is comfortable making friends. Hello. Okay. Not everybody is comfortable making friends. I have some friends. I'm the person I could like be friends with everybody, but there are some people it's very uncomfortable for them to like open up and be vulnerable and be susceptible to that type of relationship. So how do you tap into that to make it like a safe place and welcome them to be a girlfriend?
So in answer to that, the girlfriendism space is always a safe place for whoever. It doesn't matter your personality type. So for me, I know a lot of people may not think this, but I'm actually an introvert by nature. I am social with the people that I know. But in terms of just going out there and being the center of attention, I tend to stay more on the sidelines. So when I actually found my tribe here, I was one of the more quiet, the quiet people in the group. I'm a little bit more vocal now because, of course, I'm much more comfortable. But the opportunity is there for you to be whoever you want to be in that space. There is no judgment. There's no pressure. If you want to just enjoy the camaraderie and just be quiet on the side, it's there for you to do. If you want to be the center of attention and you want to be the one that is like the life of the party, that's there also. So everyone has the opportunity to have what is comfortable for them.
And I'll add, I mean, it's easy when you're in a space that you're familiar and there's people that you know, but going back to an example where I traveled to some place where I didn't know anybody, I am the introvert. Kimi and I debate all the time. I'm like, you're the extrovert, I'm the introvert. I don't like doing this public speaking stuff. Contrary to what a lot of people think, I'm more comfortable being by myself. So when I had to go into spaces where I didn't know anybody, I always look for the person who is like sitting in the corner by themselves, because I was like, okay, that's probably a tribe member because they're just as scared as hell to go into a room full of people as I am, and I ended up would connect with those folks. So sometimes it's easier to just connect one-on-one with somebody as opposed to doing it in such a large, beautiful group as this one, right? Was there another question?
I'll just add a little bit to that. I think that if, as a friend, we know someone who is a lot more introverted, and we know how good it is for them to be exposed more to people, then I would carry my introverted friend, my shy friend, to some of the places where I may go that would introduce her to new people, and I would kind of like be her protector. It's like, okay, you stay with me. If you don't need to speak to anybody, I will make sure that nobody like rushes you or anything like that. If I see, you know, give me the hand signal. If you're too overstimulated, we can step outside, that kind of thing like that. So be a girlfriend to your introverted sisters, because you know, just like Giovanni and I know you, and you said introverted, but now actually you said you're getting out of it, but what you're doing actually is growing.
Yes.
And so we can be girlfriends to our shy sisters and help them grow by protecting them in these situations where they're uncomfortable.
And that's a good point, Melody. I think that sometimes when people are introverted, right, we have the tendency of feeling that they're aloof or they're antisocial, but it's the way they thank you. Let's just be real, right? Stuck up. Let's just be real. Yeah, but the thing is that they're just processing internally versus an extrovert who might do it more externally. Miss Joanna. I love when the girlfriends jump in on the conversation.
Good afternoon.
Good
I
afternoon.
wanted to jump in and piggyback on what Melanie was saying. So Giovanni, I'm going to use you as an example.
Yes.
You know, I have such love and respect for you. Here in the Virgin Islands, being a first-time author last year, between myself and a young lady, Miss Farrelly, we decided to bring forth a VI anthology called Passion and Purpose, 20 inspiring stories from women in the U.S. Virgin Islands on leadership, business, and life. And I reached out to Giovanni. She was one of our last authors to come on board. And I remembered you were like, you sure? I don't think I have anything to say.
I had absolutely nothing to offer. I was like,
Yes.
I saw the opportunity for everybody else, but I was like, well, I just thought they were telling me about it. I didn't realize they were asking me.
We were trying to
be
get
a
her on
part of
board.
it.
And she was kind of shy about it, but it was my responsibility, as what Melanie was saying, to help my sister and to encourage her and say, yes, you have a voice. We all have a voice. Join us as we as 20 women come together. So Melanie, I just wanted to just say that and bring that as an example. And to see you here and you're speaking and your chapter is going to be coming out soon, I so appreciate it. We all appreciate it, and your story will be told.
Thank you, thank you.
We're good?
Awesome.
All right, well, thank you all very
Ladies,
much for
thank
listening.
you.
Thanks for having us.
So let's give our girlfriends a big round of applause. So just for the record, like I've been to Greece twice, actually. I've been to Greece twice. No, I have. I've been to Greece in 2009. That was my very first time going. I actually went with Sholanda's sister. Well, okay, so I was a part of a teen talk show called Graffiti Street. Anybody ever heard of Graffiti Street? Okay. So it was the only teen talk show in the Virgin Islands, and we would take students on international trips, and I love international travel. So in 2009, we went to Athens. Yes, we went to Italy. It was life-changing for me. I stood in front of the Trevi Fountain and I cried. It was just so beautiful just seeing that. And the Vatican, the Sistine Chapel, the Colosseum. So I went back in 2019 and I was like, this is where I'm gonna move. Like, I play the lottery all the time now because like as soon as I win, right? As soon as I win, I am going to Greece. And I did my birthday photo shoot in Santorini, and you know, with the flowy dress and everything and the blue roofs, and yes, that's where I'm going to be. So just a few things, because it would not be an event if someone was not blocking, right? I mean, we always need to do these things. So I don't know what it is with Acuras. I have a Toyota Corolla, so clearly it's not a Corolla person, but if you are driving an Acura, any Acura folks? TLCGU 389. I wish they gave me the color because some people don't know their license plate. One of them is white. And Acura RDX CGC 315. So CGU 389 and CGC 315. No one is moving yet. So if you're driving an Acura, just if you parked up here, you are actually blocking. It's definitely time for you to move. We do not want to get you towed, so please move your vehicle as soon as you can, expeditiously. Now, I was told that we're going to have a very short break, but it's going to be a working break, and as soon as Marquita gives me the thumbs up to continue, but it's going to be a working break. So really simple, and all you have to do is raise your hand or stand, all right? If there was some type of significant accomplishment for you this year, maybe if you started a business, maybe if you wrote a book, maybe if you took that trip you always wanted to take, maybe you got divorced and you're very happy now, or maybe you got married, maybe you celebrated a milestone birthday, maybe you celebrated an anniversary. If there was something that happened significant for you this year, please stand. Nobody? I'm gonna stand for everybody because I got a couple of things. Okay, yes? Yes? And if you don't mind, if you can just throw out some of the things for me. What's some of the things? Wrote the book? Wrote the book? Yeah, in the blue, yes, you. What's your accomplishment? I hit 45. Oh, you hit 45? Okay. Celebrating the 45th birthday. A promotion, I love it, in the back. Started a company, yes, we have so many entrepreneurs. I love female businesses. Home ownership, listen, congratulations. I just love it. Over on this side, someone stood up. 5 years of marriage, congratulations, you are happy. I didn't hear you, machines. 35 years of marriage. Oh my goodness, 35. We love it, we love it. Anyone else would like to share? Someone's behind the pillar. She's hot, clearly. Hi. Are you guys twins? Oh, okay. And behind you? You checked off Alaska off of the list. I love it. So Alaska is not on my list. I have lots of places on my list, but not Alaska. Was it worth it? Wow, okay. I don't like the cold, but what was the temperature when you went? 50s. I thought you said 15. 50s. Okay, we could work with the 50s. And lady next to you? Started a business. Yes. Graffiti, of course, yes. Kiva, yes. What's your accomplishment or anything you'd like to highlight? You got published in Vogue? She got published in Vogue.com. That is fantastic, yes. And Melody, your accomplishment this year? You showing off. You showing off. You showing off.
January, Mexico for the third time.
Melody wants to show off on us. You know, she's retired. You know, retired folks can do those type of things. And I saw one more on this side. No? Okay. She sat down. Moved to St. Croix full time. From where? Where did you move from? From Philadelphia? Okay. To work with Human Services. You can't miss that part. She moved from Philly to work here in St. Croix. And one more, tell me. You launched Empower Magazine. Yes. So I did see that. I did see Kenya Eugene. Kenya Eugene is on the cover. One of my favorite singers. Wonderful. So please celebrate yourselves. Give yourselves a round of applause, right? You know, sometimes we don't do it enough for ourselves. We're the hardest on ourselves. If we make a mistake, we're so critical on things that we should have done, could have done, would have done. But the things that we actually do, we don't pat ourselves on the back. We don't give ourselves any credit. And please, if you know a queen that had a recent accomplishment or something that they should be proud of themselves, feel free to tell her job well done or good job, something, because the more positivity that we can pass on to one another, literally, that's how we create our tribes and our circles and our village. So I'm going to see if I get the signal. We're good to go. Okay, so we are still going to do a break. It's going to be very short, okay? When I say short, you might just want to sit or catch some air outside real quick, but 5 minutes. And then we'll come right back in and then move on to our next panel presentation, okay? So just 5 minutes and we will be right back. owners of the 2 Acuras. I do hope that you moved your vehicles. Listen, nobody wants to get towed. Nobody wants, like, listen, it's too expensive to get towed in these days. Too expensive. So, 2 things we're going to do before we get into our next panel presentation. First, I would like for anyone in the room, if you are currently running for a political office, again, we're not here to endorse, we just want you to be recognized. But if you are running for office, if you can please stand so we can recognize you. And again, Queens, remember I told you before you leave today, if any of these women stood and you do not know who they are, please make it your business to go to them, say hi, find out what they're all about, what office they're running for, just in case, you know, you are able to offer that support. So thank you so much for joining us for today's event. What we're gonna do real quick, just let them know your name. So you can, this moves, you can come right here and just let them know your name and your office that you're running for.
Good day, Queens. I am Florine Ordain Hassel, and I'm running for the Board of Elections, number 4 on your ballot. I would really appreciate you all to vote for me. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I am Diane Capehart. I am no stranger to this arena, served in the 30th, running for the 35th. I ask for your vote, your support. I am number 19 on the ballot. Love you, Queens.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, sisters and queen. I am Nemi Jackson, number 15 on your ballot. I am so proud of all of you, knowing that we all should always know our worth. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you so much, Queens. Now I'm going to ask, did I press? Okay, listen, I got scared. I was like, oh no, I just messed up Larry's mic. So pull out your raffle tickets. Before we transition to the next panel, we're going to, where are your raffle tickets? Man, you don't listen. I said to hold on to, did I not say? You have your, just tell me your number. Whoever have their raffle tickets, just, okay, chuck it. So I'm going to ask for my lovely assistant to join me. And we have to say thank you to Crucian Gold for their donation of the prizes. We had some great prizes that we gave out. And then let everyone know who you are.
I'm Tatia Monell Hewitt, the Chief Financial Officer for the Department of Health.
And what Ms. Hewitt did, Ms. Hewitt generously donated the next 2 prizes. So we have a pedicure and a manicure, right? Who doesn't love a pedi and a mani? So we're going to pull the winners for those prizes. Alrighty, so let's pay attention. 524-6547. 6547 are the last 4 digits. 524-6547. It says store it like it's Kalaloo. Just shake it up and just, yes. 524, nope, 6547 going once. Right? 6547 going twice. 6547 gone. So sad. Alrighty, 524-6514. 6514. No, seriously? 6514 going once, 6514 going twice. I wonder if this is my ticket. 524, where is this? 6457, that's like the number we just called, right? Oh, again? This is Julene, okay, because they were ready to come for you. They were so ready to come for you. So then, like, everybody just give her your ticket to hold, right? We're going to pick some lottery numbers after this event. We're going to get a Powerball. What's today? Today is Friday. 524. I feel like oh yeah, I was like, why does this look the same? Okay, 524-6482. 524-6482. Yes, yes, okay. This is the winning side. I mean, the whole place winning, but that side. Congratulations. That's all the prizes, right? One more prize? A chain. Oh, where's my ticket? This is a Crucian gold chain. And the cars did not move. Where are the owners of those Acuras? So this ticket number is 524-6484. 524-6484. Going once? Yes? Yes? All righty. I like when we have one from each side, right? So we are now ready for our next guest presentation. We're going to ask for everyone to get settled. And I am very excited about this panel presentation because when it comes to fierce women, right? Women who can chew gum and walk at the same time. Women who can wear an S on their chests because they look so beautiful in their blue dress that flows like a cape. Women who hold positions wherein to come from the Virgin Islands and to be on certain committees in Congress and to make sure that you are doing the people's work always and being unapologetically you. We have women on this panel that do just that. So this panel is called I Was Here. Small island, big energy. These women share the importance of building a strong legacy. That word is so important, making sure that there is something for generations to come. On this panel, we have Elon Johnson, we have our Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett, and our moderator, Maurice James. Sorry, Maurice James. Maurice told us she was celebrating 35 years, right? 35 years of marriage, so congratulations on that. So, Queens, and yes, she is indeed running for Senate, correct? You were not here to stand, so we will let her stand now. Okay, we'll start over. And if there is any woman who may be running for office, if you can please stand so that we can recognize you. This is where you stand, Maurice. Stand, Maurice, yes. Thank you so much. So yes, for the 35th legislature and of course our delegate to Congress. So ladies and gentlemen, gentlemen, the few kings here, but queens. Now our Congresswoman wasn't here this morning, so we need to let her feel the energy that we've had all day. Queens. That's who we are. One more time, queens. That's who we are. Wonderful. Ms. James, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to be here. I am going to first allow these beautiful women, powerful women, to introduce themselves, and I'll start with Elon.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. My name is Elon Johnson. I am the head of development and production at Tyler Perry Studios. I live in Atlanta. I'm Brooklyn born and Bayesian bred. My parents are from Barbados. That's more important than the Tyler Perry part. So, full Caribbean woman here, and yeah, I've been in this space of entertainment and making television and films for over 20 years now, and I'm just very happy to be here today to speak to you all about the things that we're doing and just what we can do as women to kind of grow ourselves in a bigger space.
Thank you. Thank you. Delegate Plaskett.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stacey Plaskett. I have the humble honor of representing the people of the Virgin Islands in the U.S. House of Representatives. I'm an attorney. I've been practicing law for over 30 years before I went into office. I am the mother of 5 children. I have 4 boys and 1 girl. And I've recently been a grandmother of 1. I juggle that and being a married woman as well, with also being the daughter of both of my parents. I'm blessed that both of my parents are still with us. Both of my parents are from St. Croix, Christiansted. My mother said she saw my father in the 4th grade and went home and said, "That's the man I got married." So they moved. They're part of the Great Migration that left the Virgin Islands in the 50s. And I was born in Brooklyn, but the St. Croix, the Virgin Islands, has always been my home. I came back to St. Croix in 2004, thinking that I was coming to be in private practice, write a book, and lead a very quiet life. And that has not worked out. But you know, you take what you are given, and I try to live my life by meeting the objectives of the gifts that I have been given. That to whom much is given, much is required. And I have been blessed with tremendous ancestors, family who continues to sacrifice for me. And so my life is about giving back and being part of that sacrifice.
Thank you. And now I'll tell a little bit about myself. I am Maurice James. I am the daughter of Constance Espinosa. She was a single mother. My father, most of you know, Dr. Randall James, who was a physician to thousands of people on the island. I went to Catholic school. That's where I got most of my values in addition to the family values I have. I then went to George Washington University thinking that I was going to be a doctor like my father, but that didn't happen. Played basketball, Division I scholarship athlete. Came back home, taught at Central and Elena Christian, and then went to, well, there's a little bit in between that I always skip over, but I'll tell you guys. In 1981, I was Miss Virgin Islands. I represented the VI at the Miss Universe contest, which was an experience in itself. And then I decided to I worked for tourism, went to law school, came back, worked for Winston Hodge and Albert Sheen. Could not have had a better learning experience in my life. 2 proud Crucian men that I always get emotional about it because they died young. And then I worked in the private nonprofit. I was in the military for 18 years as their staff judge advocate. Came out and didn't plan on doing anything in 2018. And then life changed, and I went to work for Governor Bryan for 1 year, and then said, you know what, I'm going to go back into private practice, real estate development, and did that. And then in 2022 of May, I was challenged by a young millennial to run for the Senate. And I said, okay, if you go and get the petition signed. Why did I say that? He did. Got all 50, 100, whatever signatures. And then I was put on the spot. And I love a challenge. And I'm going to start. We are talking about legacy today. And part of my deciding to run has to do with my legacy. This past week when Tita called me, and Tita and I go way back, and she talked about being on this panel, and she said, you know, we would be talking about legacy and what it means and all of that, and I said, sure. And right after that, you know, one of the things I believe is that everything comes to me in perfect time, space, sequence. Everything in my life comes to me in that way. And I'm confident that God, the universe, whatever you call him, he delivers every time I need to be guided. So I was sitting there, and my husband says, I said to my husband, this mango from this client tastes so good. We need to plant this, we need to plant one of these, somehow plant it. I want a mango in our yard. And he said to me, well, remember now, I've been married 35 years. He said, well, if we plant it, we're going to never get to eat from it. And I then thought about legacy. That we plant, but it doesn't necessarily mean we are going to benefit from it. You know, that's what legacy is. And I said to him, my husband, I said, thank you for that. And interestingly, I'm a lawyer. Stacy knows this, Delegate Plaskett. We research. And I went online and I said, let me start with an introduction for the ladies. And what do you think came up? The tree, about a tree. And this is what this lady wrote, Susan Bossack. Where do you think it is best to plant a young tree? A clearing in an old-growth forest or an open field? Apparently, the young tree grows better when it's planted in an area with older trees. The reason, it seems, is that the roots of the young tree are able to follow the pathways created by former trees and implant themselves more deeply. Over time, the roots of many trees may actually graft themselves to one another, creating an intricate, interdependent foundation hidden under the ground. In this way, stronger trees share resources with weaker ones, so that the whole forest becomes healthier. That's legacy and interconnection across time, with a need for those who have come before us and a responsibility to those who come after us. And so I was going to start by telling you what my legacy is. And you saw it this morning, because Sydney Paul is my daughter, and my children are my legacy. That's who I am leaving behind. I mean, I may do other things, you know, but really and truly, I feel that raising my children in the way that I raised them was my greatest accomplishment. And then the strangest thing happened on the stage this morning, where Tamisha, this is the first panel, Tamisha, Summer, Keisha was sitting there, Zara was sitting here, and I knew every single one of them. And if you notice, they all mentioned me as a teacher. So then I said, that's my legacy too. So when a student tells me, you taught me well, that's my legacy. And Keisha and I found out that we were related, and she specifically talked about leaving a legacy. So for me, I then took that and extended it to this. Most of you know that right now, for me, the children are the VI, are who I am focused on. So my legacy was my children, but if we are serving a community, then we go beyond our children, our own children. So I'm going to start with Elan and ask her. You have the floor. Tell us about what legacy means to you and how in your life it's been expressed.
It's very interesting that you said the tree thing, and you and I were speaking earlier about my name, which is Hebrew, which means baby tree. So I really am like feeling all the things right now, right?
Yeah.
So for me, in terms of legacy, I don't have any children of my own. I have an 8-year-old sister, though. So there is everything that I'm doing at this point in my life is really to create that path for her, to let her see the opportunities to what you can do. Because to me, the opportunity really comes from exposure. So she gets to see what I do now as an 8-year-old, as a 6-year-old, as a 4-year-old, so she has an idea of what opportunities are out there. As far as my work is concerned, though, working in the entertainment business, and like I said, I've done this over 20 years. I've been at MTV in New York, worked in Times Square, VH1, BET, NBC in LA. I worked for a lot of different places before coming to Atlanta and Tyler Perry Studios. And in those spaces, my job, I felt personally in terms of legacy, as a leader, was to help and provide for staff, people that were coming in, interns, particularly people of color in disadvantaged situations that figured out how to get here, but don't know how to move from here. And that has been very important to me in terms of legacy, particularly because the entertainment industry doesn't always come off as this place of a give back place. So that is literally my thing in spaces, in this kind of a space where it feels like all fun and games or thrillers or horrors or whatever. It's like, but there's people that are working there every day, and they have to figure out how to navigate, and it becomes very difficult a lot of times for people, young people of color who want to make their way because they don't know what moves to make and haven't had the luxury of working in all different types, women's entertainment, lifestyle, you know, very diverse programming. I've had that experience, and that is what I wish to share as my legacy.
Okay, thank you, Delegate Plaskett.
It's hard for me to say what my legacy is because I feel that I'm just the beginning of creating what it is I want to create with my life. You would think at 50-something, you know, you kind of have a sense. And it was interesting that several months ago, I was meeting with a financial planner, and he was asking me about retirement. And I was like, I wish, how many times did I tell you, I have no intentions of retiring.
That must be a lawyer thing. I don't either.
Well, you know, I felt like as an attorney, as a lawyer, or just as a professional, you work so hard to get to where you are. Why would you stop if your mind is still working? And that there are just new chapters of what it is that you are going to be doing. But when I think of legacy, I think about the legacies that have passed me. I have the privilege of living in town in Christiansted, which has its challenges, but is you know, a very beautiful place. But the most beautiful part of it is that I live very close to the graveyard, to the cemetery. And I'm always trying to tell my daughter in particular, who is still trying to come to grips with the fact that we live down the block from the cemetery at night, that none of those people in there are going to harm you. That is all your family. And I spend a lot, I actually, every time I come home, I make it a point to stop in there and to think about the sacrifices of all four of my grandparents and my great-grandparents who were in there, cousins, great aunts, etc., you know, my uncles, and it goes, the place is large, and there's a lot of people to visit. But, you know, I think about for those of us who are from here or from other islands, where we were 100 years ago. You know, the fact that I was, my house is small in Christiansted because people weren't allowed legally to have large homes. If you were a free slave, you could not, your house was confined to a certain size. And where are we now? You know, the legacy that they have given us, the legacy of hard work, the legacy of striving, the legacy of resilience. And that's what I try and show. And, you know, although I have 5 children, 4 boys, I feel like there are so many people who are part of my legacy. When I'm at work, when I'm on the floor, when I'm debating, I know that I'm speaking not just for my family that's behind me and those who came, those of our ancestors, but what will it mean to some young child? What will it mean to some young Virgin Islander? What I say, what I don't say, what I stand up for, what I don't stand up for. And that's constantly with me. I always try to have young people in my office. I don't know if you always try. I always try to have an abundance of interns. One, because they give a lot of energy and great ideas to the office, and they keep you vibrant, but that I want to pass something down. You know, unfortunately, I did not have a lot of Black mentors as I was coming up. I had an unusual life in that at 13, a prep school, a boarding school in Connecticut, found out about my scores on a test and gave me a full scholarship. So from the age of 13, I was in an environment where there weren't many people that looked like me, with people with tremendous wealth who didn't understand the life that I came from. But I found within there people who were willing to give, people who were willing to support. And the lessons that I learned from them, I try to pass on to other people. You know, things like when a young staffer comes in the office and I tell them that I want to speak with them, and they walk in with their empty hands. I'm like, where's your pen and paper? You know, don't come in my office like you know everything. You're here to learn, so you better have something to write something down. You know, little things like that, things that I try to impart on them, to listen, to learn, to come in first, to leave last. You know, everyone in my office always comments on the fact that I'm usually the first one there. I'm usually the last one to leave. I'm not afraid to do, I can do everybody in the office's job, and I remind them of that. So that you're not indispensable, you're part of the team, we're all part of the team. And that's the kind of legacy that I want. The life that I've lived to be a life that not just my children, but that others will consider. And I think of that because, you know, so many of the mentors that you talked about, you know, like the Winston Hodge, the Albert Sheen, so many of us have people like that in our life. These were not our parents, right? These were just people who imparted on other people in the community. And I think that we need to think of our community as larger than the people in our house. And I fear that that's something that we have gotten away from.
Well, yeah, I will say that for me, sitting here listening to when you talked about your childhood, my childhood was total community. I mean, now that I think about it, you know, I mean, I'm living in the Hamilton Jackson, and at that time, most Crucians moved there temporarily before they could move into their own homes. But so if I had to call out the names, you know, Petersons, Edney, Samuels, Williams, oh Lord, like Shangs, I could go on and on about, you know, Christians, all the people that played a role in my life. But my core values, which is your legacy too, your values, your beliefs, yeah, right, the attitudes you have in your life, came from my grandmother. My mother's mother. And her legacy was how she treated her neighbors and how she felt like you had to do right by people all the time. She would always say to me, do right by people. So when I got older and I came back home to St. Croix, St. Croix wasn't necessarily good to me when I returned home, because at that point we sometimes had people who had an attitude that if you came home and you were educated, who she thinks she is? And all of a sudden you're like, well, didn't they want me to become educated? What's going on here, you know? All of a sudden you began to feel like, oh, hell, I need to get the hell out of here. But I decided not to, right? A lot of people, and at that point I decided that I remembered what my grandmother said about do right by people, and I said, okay, I am going to always encourage people younger than myself. Always. No matter who I met or where I met them in this community, whether it was as a lawyer or in the guard as the JAG soldiers coming to me, or just anywhere, I would just do right by people, and I would always encourage people younger than myself. But the thing about legacy is that for young people, it's learning about the past, like you said, you know, and so we have to tell them the stories. And for the adults, it's really the hope for the future. And so I want you to, Gilan, talk about just growing up and what your parents give to you, your parents specifically. And my mother also always said, my mother was always a hard worker, so when you said about hard work, it was like, Maurice, nothing is going to come easy. It's by the sweat of your brow, right? You have to work for it. So that was the thing I learned too. So you can share with us.
Absolutely, and I learned the same thing. I think that's kind of a common thread in the Caribbean culture.
Yes.
You know, this work ethic, right? So that was very much my upbringing. I was in a single parent home, but my grandmother was there. So that was until my mom remarried when I was a teenager. So my early years with my two younger brothers were very much a push for excellence and independence. Like that was every single day. You bring home a 90, why wasn't it a 95? You bring home a 95, why wasn't it a 100, right? So I came from that kind of a space, and share with you that private school experience. I went away as well to a very small all-girls school from my high school years, because education was so important in my household. And despite my mother being a single parent, she was going to find a way to put all three of us through private school, and that was the priority. And then my grandmother really brought more of the cultural part of it, as she was a stay-at-home grandmother. And I just remember from the time that I was probably in kindergarten, just always kneeling at her feet to hear the stories of Barbados, because she had been there in a time where she literally remembered when the first airplane flew over the island.
Really?
And she said that and I always remember this story so vividly, because even though I was so young, I'm like, airplanes, there's tons of airplanes. But for her to say that it was a thing on the island, and that people were so scared they were running under chairs and benches because nothing this big had ever flown over such a small island, it just always gave me this plate, like I just thrived to know more and more and more and more. And then, when I became of age to remember, then she was a snowbird, so she would go home in the winters, and we would spend a lot more time in Barbados. And then that's why I always say that sometimes it's not necessarily about where you are, but like what's in your home. So even being in Brooklyn, it just always felt like...
But Brooklyn is the largest Caribbean island.
That it is. That it is. So there's that part of it. So yeah, so definitely a combination of a hard work ethic and also the kindness to others. My mother is very much one of those people, and I actually have, as I've gotten older, kept that, but I've also been mindful of not to be abused by that.
Yes,
because people will take advantage of it. So there's always that, just that pivot of learning how to care for people and care for humankind, and at the same time be mindful that you do not deplete yourself because people are just taking so much from you. So that's very much what my household was like, and I'm very thankful and lucky to have had that, especially in Brooklyn in the 70s and 80s, and until now.
Okay. You want to share yours?
I think for my parents, they were older siblings of large families, and their time in New York was to send money back home. Like that was their existence, was to provide not just for me, but for their family, and they felt that responsibility as older siblings. So I can remember, the money order in the air bill, the cellophane envelope being sent down. I can remember boxes being put together and being sent down, back home. I can remember cousins being sent to live with us if they were really smart or they were really bad. They would be sent to live. My dad was, is no joke, so they would come and stay with us. But this sense of responsibility that you had to others. And, when I talk about going away to school, my friends from that time, so I'm in a school, it was 900 students, 11 black people. Wow. You're there from you're 13 years old, all through high school, Saturday classes, you're there all the time. You've got to figure it out on your own. My parents, I was in a world that my parents just didn't understand, and I was keenly aware that I could not fail. And that my failure could be a block from other people behind me being given the opportunity. Oh, well, we had that bad experience with that one black girl. We're not going to let any more black people come in.
Yeah.
And so I kind of took that on. But, thankfully I have parents who instilled a kind of fierceness in me. I'm overly competitive. most people would say. Very disciplined. I don't understand people who, so when you talked about your personal and your professional life, to me it's the same thing. That's just how I operate. I mean, I was telling someone this story about my father. I ran track, high school, college, 400, 800. And I can remember one meet my father being there, and after the first heat, I went up to him. I shaved off a couple of seconds from my time. I came in second, and I went up to him, and he's like, "Why are you smiling?" And I was like, "Well, I took off such much time. I came out of the blocks, whatever." He's like, "What did you come in?" And I said, "I came in second." He was like, "Second is the first loser."
Whoa.
And so having a father like that meant that there was he did not brook failure. That was just not an option for me. And sometimes I have to be careful in dealing with other people that I work with, my staff and others, that I can't have those same kind of expectations for them, that may be unfair to be that way with them, but that's how I am with myself. That's, unfortunately, for my children, that's how I am with them. And if you say you want me to take you on, that's how I'm going to be with you, right? Because think about it, growing up in Brooklyn in the 70s, you have a single parent. Both my parents worked. My dad was a cop. My mom worked overtime. You're taking the train by yourself. You're, third grade, I'm on New York City train. You get home. I went to private school. That meant when we got back to where we lived, which was the projects, I got to fight. So you got to get to, you got to have your 2 fights before you can get up to the apartment, make your lunch, lock the door, call your mother, I'm home, okay. Did you have a safe trip? Yes. What are you going to say? And then you go about your business.
I'm glad you talked about passing the legacy in terms of your employees too, because I have that same struggle. In terms of my expectations of others. But I just wanted to go back quickly before I ask the next question, and that is to what you said about the airplane. My grandmother also told me that story, and she said that people were saying here on St. Croix, "Beale in the sky, Beale flying in the sky." And
automobile.
So it's the same thing that was happening. And when you talked about your dad with running, I had that experience with my mother, where when she came home and she had gotten my report card, and I'm going to lead into family legacies with this, because I was always an A student, same thing, not good enough. And that day when she came home, she just threw the report card at me, and she said, "Don't bring another report card like this." Rough, and you're like, okay, I picked it up, I looked at it, and I'm thinking, I probably did better than 90% of the people in the class, right? And so I want to talk about legacies, like you talked about. Sometimes legacies can be negative and they can be positive. And earlier today, I can't remember, on one of the panels, they talked about how it's interesting, because this was one of the legacies that I read, which is your parents saying to you, children should be seen and not heard. That is a negative legacy that we pass on. And of course, we have the legacy of slavery, pain and suffering that we went through. So I want to talk about the negative legacies that we need to change in our community. And that was the one that I just gave you, because we can't continue in this community to have these negative legacies passed on. Now, I think we shifted one legacy that I grew up with, and that was when I grew up as a child here on the island. Education was important to the entire community. The entire community. That's why you have all these schools named after all these wonderful teachers and principals. And then all of a sudden it shifted, and it's no longer important, and that's something we need to somehow find a way to reverse. So for me, that's the one that I can think of now in our community that we need to shift. When Tita said about my daughter, when she talked about crying earlier and beating, no. I tried it once with, Sydney was never the child that I had to spank or anything, you know? She's a middle child. The middle child is the arbiter, the mediator, right? But the oldest child, who is a girl, and the boy, they were always at it. And one day, I decided that I would spank my son, and the next morning, but it wasn't even, I couldn't even do it, right? The next morning, he came and he said, Mommy, I want you to know you could have killed me. And you should, yeah, and you shouldn't do that again. And I think all I did was push him on the couch and like held him by his shoulder and said, I don't want you to do that ever again. That's all I did. But he was like, he took it all the way to kill. Guilt. Guilt up to now. Sometimes I go, I wonder if he remembers that. But maybe he doesn't.
He's fine.
He's fine, right? So the thing is, Tita, I want to say that when Sydney talked about crying this morning, I remember the song by Regina Bell that said, if I could cry for you, you know, if I could shed your tears, because that's how parents are. So I want you both to just...
I know, I can go.
You can go?
I'm gonna put it out there. I think we need to get rid of the legacy of toxic and bad relationships.
Yes, yes.
That many of us have mothers, grandmothers, aunts who were in very unequal and very bad relationships with men here in this community.
Yes, yes.
And that we have, in some ways, modernized it, but it's still there.
Yeah.
We, as a lot of women, accept things that we should not expect in a relationship from a man. And I think in some ways our men are weaker because of it.
Oh, good
because
point.
we allow them, we allow them to be trifling in a lot of ways. So that's the legacy that I think, you know, talk about man sharing, you know, your grandmother talk about so-and-so had children with this one and that one and this and that, and, you know, women who had good relationships with each other, raising children with the same man or whatever. Some of that's a legacy of slavery that they continue to do. And in some ways, we have kept some of that in relationships that exist here in the Virgin Islands. Some women feel like they're empowered by it, and some men feel like they have a lot of control because of it as well. I think that that's something that we are really doing a disservice to us as a whole, and particularly to our, you know, our girls and to our men here in the Virgin Islands.
So how do we address that? How do we change it?
I don't know, call people on their BS, maybe? I just, you know, I'm just trying to be real. I don't know. I don't know. You know, I see it in aunts and family members, but I don't know. Each of us have to answer for ourselves what's the right thing and not the right thing to do.
Yeah, yeah. Do you want to...
That's a hard act to follow, but I totally agree with you. I just think anything that's sort of this toxic remnants of slavery is the places that we have to really work.
Yeah.
It is in our relationships. It's in our self-worth.
Yeah.
So that part is just this.
That may be part of the relationship issue.
Yeah. That's the lack of value that's still. I think there's certain that start this. I'm definitely in the people I encounter, I see in the Gen Z, I see a difference. It's almost like the opposite. They have no problems with any self-worth. Like they're completely like, you know, they know who they are and they value themselves. And I think there needs to be a middle ground though, because there still needs to be some respect of the past and learning from that, and not being in the space of like, I know everything and I'm perfect and I don't have to do any of the things that to get where I need to be. So like somewhere in that middle seems to be a little bit healthier, in my opinion.
I think they do have more problems than we do, simply because of the way the world is now, where it's so globalized. I want to say that one of the things that I have dealt with in the community in terms of success and being a successful woman, and I've always said this to people, if I become more, it doesn't make you less. And if you become more, it doesn't make me less. But we are still struggling with that. We're still struggling with it. Are we going to go to questions now from the audience? 2 minutes for questions? Okay, 2 minutes for questions. Any questions from anyone? Yes?
We need to go back to when you reach home and somebody tell your parents they did already here, or correct, you're walking down the street and you do something wrong and somebody corrects you. We just need to be a village again.
We need to go back to where people were accountable.
Yeah, it's accountability.
We were accountable for each other.
For our communities.
Yeah, that's a good point. But we don't have sidewalks anymore. You know, yes, we did. That's the interesting thing. We did have, well, if you live in town and if you live, what happened is when people started to move out into subdivisions, they built houses and the developers never made provision for sidewalks. And so you go out in the street, your neighbor, you have to go out in the street to go to your neighbor. Think about it. Just a simple thing like that. I noticed when I was growing up, and then because I am a real estate attorney, it's very noticeable to me that we took away sidewalks for some reason. I don't know. You know, look at the towns, how they're built. They even have shades for you to walk under when you were walking. So, any other questions for the two ladies here?
Oh, come on.
Any comment, maybe? You have a question? Okay, thank you. Hold on.
So tell me, I think it's so exciting where you work now.
Yes.
Give us the dealio on Tyler Perry. I think he's so brilliant, and I know people like that. Like I remember this thing that Lionel Richie said one time, and that he said he has a radio in his head of songs that are playing that have never been published or written. And I feel like Tyler Perry is like almost the same type of genius. He has so many stories in his head. So what are your personal experiences with Tyler Perry?
Well, he does have so many stories in his head, and outside of his head, they come to fruition very quickly. But I'll say this: when I left New York, which was 3 years ago, I was working in Times Square. I was not thinking about leaving New York in any kind of way, fashion, or form. That's my home. If I was leaving, I was probably going international. So my first experience was to come down to the studio. I didn't know what that studio had looked like. So I get there, and as we're pulling up, we have these things going from New York to New Jersey called the Easy Pass lanes, right? Which are these big lanes that you have your little thing, your sensor to go to your car. And it feels like an event. You're going to another state. That was at the front of the studio. And I was just like, oh my goodness, there's an Easy Pass lane to get into where I'm going to work. And then the building that I would be working in at the time was called the Dream Building. So, and then on top of it, it's, you know, it is over 330 acres of land. We have a White House built to scale, a neighborhood. They built New York City behind my office on the back lot, literally a New York City street, and I feel like that was an ode to me, so that I look out my window and I get to emergency home. So there's all these amazing things, but the most powerful part of it for me was that this is all owned by a black man. Like, it's not AT&T owned, or it's not, some other big IBM, company. A black man did this, and that's why we work in the Dream Building, because it's to inspire all of us that are there that we too can have something as big and beautiful as this. So, yeah, it's an amazing experience.
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Oh, there's one. One more. This is the last one.
So my question to you is, in your environment now, because usually you hear women talk about, okay, I work for a large corporation, and there are issues in climbing ranks or being yourself in the equality as far as pay, etc. Are you finding that problem because you're in a different environment where you're with people of color?
Oh, I think that's an issue across the board. I think that it depends, like at least at our company, there is an investment in people, right? It's very small. It's, despite what we put out, there's only 150 full-time staffers, and 100 of them are groundskeepers. So everybody that comes in, there's only like 50 of us that really work there. It's very small. So in that space, as compared to where I've worked in places I've worked before, like a Viacom, where it's really big and you just are like feeling that push and pull and that struggle, it's not the same. But that does not stop the movement, and it doesn't stop me pushing for that, even if it's outside of where I am at the time that I am. Because as a woman that gets to an executive level, it's still my responsibility, I feel, to try and pull other people up into those spaces.
That also applies to you.
Well, it's very different in politics, right? The standards we have for women are very different than we have for men. My staff have learned not to tell me when people call and say they didn't like my hair, they didn't like my lipstick color. That's the kind of stuff that people will call and ask a woman politician that they never even think about with a man. And the allowances that we give for men, we don't give for women in politics.
True.
But one of the things that I find interesting, I was looking at Donna Christensen when I was saying this, is there's a huge debate going on right now, even among our party in Congress, is that leadership positions in Congress are based on election by other members. So the speaker, the whip, the majority leader, the caucus chair, the vice chair, those are elected by your colleagues. And there has not been a black woman in any of those positions elected since Shirley Chisholm.
Wow.
And it's because it's based on money, a lot of times, for the most part. It's, have I given you a check for your campaign? Did I pay dues to the party for this? Did I support you in your campaign financially? And so then, I've seen races where someone who worked, a black woman who worked really hard, who was there for other people, and she's like, I'm trying to see if so-and-so will vote for me. And I'm like, she's not gonna vote, she's not gonna vote for you because the person you're running against did a fundraiser for them and they raised $50,000. So that's not gonna happen for you. So that becomes, who do people invest money in? That's now the glass ceiling internally for black women in politics, because oftentimes we come from communities that don't have money, and national donors don't feel the need to give us money in the same way that they give others. In my last election, I made enough for the party and for others that when I asked for a position on a committee that, not many black people have been on, they almost had to do it. But that's shifting paradigms that, it's the same way everywhere. How they see us is different than how they see black men.
Yes.
Is different than how they see white women. Yes. And definitely white men.
Yes.
right?
Wow, okay, yeah, thank you. Thank you guys. Wonderful. I want to thank both of you. Of course, I want to thank the organizers of this summit. You know, wonderful. I'm sure you all agree that I learned a lot today. Yes. From the beginning till now, and there's a lot more ahead. So thank you. I hope you enjoyed us today.
Thank you. Can we give our panelists another round of applause, please, and our moderator, Maurice James, Elon Johnson, and our Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett. Queens? Don't fade on me yet, man. Don't fade on me. Don't fade on me. Queens? Wonderful, wonderful. Trust me, there's still more. There's still more. And we thank you again for just your presence here today. It really speaks volumes, and you're still here. And I know it's a little warm, so thank you, thank you, thank you. The next panel presentation, they are going to transition very quickly, so we will not have a break or any group activities in the interim. But it's going to be Growing Your Money Tree. And yes, okay, we gotta make sure we keep that bag right. So on St. Thomas, we did talk about, making sure that you have that savings for emergencies, and making sure that you invest and pay yourself, and looking at options even for investment like stocks. So it's really going to be a great discussion this afternoon. It's going to be a guide to nourishing your finances to flourish. A guide to nurturing your finances to flourish. And I think we can all agree that's something we would love to hear lots about. Our panelists will include Jade Caldwell, and Jade is going to let me know if I said that incorrectly or not. You guys know Jade? Yes. Did I say that correctly? Yes. They're like, not really. Tell me. Caldwell? Fantastic, thank you. And then we have Somalia Edwards-Warner, and our moderator, one of my mentors, Miss Oren Roebuck. So it's going to be a great, great dynamic presentation. We are going to grow our money tree. And just a quick question. He's telling me keep talking. That's okay. I always have something. I tell him I am always prepared for this. So on St. Thomas, what I did for my fillers, I love quotes. I'm always really big on sharing quotes and poems and things like that. So this one says, never hold yourself back from trying something new just because you're afraid you won't be good enough. You'll never get the opportunity to do your best work if you're not willing to first do your worst and then let yourself learn and grow. And today it's really been all about growing. It's really been all about empowerment, making sure that wherever we are in our current lives, in our current careers, that we can find opportunities to network, to interact, to make sure that we grow and empower one another. So what we're gonna do real quick, because I think they'll be ready momentarily. If there is one word, and we did this on St. Thomas, that you would use to describe what you have gained thus far from the She Women's Empowerment Conference, what would that word be? And you gotta come up, you gotta join me on stage and feel how hot the lights are. So come join me in the front, right? Just give me a one word. Come. Come on, man, we're not shy. Give me one word, anybody. You're gonna make me point at you? Fine, I can do that. This lady in the black and white striped shirt with the glasses and the wonderful red lipstick. Yes, that's you. Yes. So what would be your one word to describe today? No, you could tell me from there since you don't want to come. Inspiring. Okay, fantastic. And this lady in the yellow with the pearls, what would be your word? Empowering. So we have inspiring, empowering. And this Marcia, yes, Marcia raised her hand, talk to me. Motivating, yes. And on St. Thomas, I'm going to come to this lady in the orange in 1 second. On St. Thomas, I told you that even in hosting and emceeing, it's really hard when you look out in an audience because your faces say a lot, right? And some faces are saying you're hot. Some faces are saying it's been a long day. Some faces are saying some things, right? But this lovely lady in the white shirt, right? You have been my person today, so I always find a person in the audience who every time I look their direction, they're engaging, they have a smile, they make me feel all warm and welcome. You have been my person. So all of my eye contact have been like overhead, still trying to work this side too, but you know, it's like just gravitate to you. And you have a word for me? Elevate. I like elevating. I like elevating. So we have inspiring, empowering, motivating, elevating. Someone is writing this down, right? On this side, do we have a word to describe today? Uplifting. Okay, wonderful. And from the front row, a word. Any word to describe today? Want to give me a word? Love. Okay, today has been love. I really like that. I really, really like that. So we are going to take a small pause. We're going to take a small pause. It's too hot for all the extra stuff, okay? We're going to take a small pause. We're going to be back momentarily. What I can do in the interim, I did receive an update for all of you. We do have workshops following the last panel presentation. So you remember Gigi, who was here earlier to give us our pick-me-up after lunch? She's going to be outside the side door, down the steps, and she's going to have a wonderful workout presentation for you there. We also have another really incredible workshop, and I want to make sure that I get this correct, right? So we have Get Fit with Gigi. We have The Secret of Sensuality, and that's going to be with Kia. We have In Your Skin, a guide to maintaining a healthy skincare regimen. And then we have Pelvic Health. And those workshops are all going to be outside where the vendors are, down the stairs. I do see that the panel is in place. So let's give our queens. One more time, queens. Let's give our panelists and moderator a round of applause. Once again, we have our moderator, Ms. Oren Roebuck, one of my mentors. We also have with us Jay Caldwell and Somalia Edwards-Warner. So it's going to be growing your money tree, and we're going to have a conversation on how we can make our finances work for us, how we can make our finances flourish. Do enjoy.
Thank you, Sheila. Can you hear me well? Hi, I'm Oren Roebuck. I'm a Senior Vice President of Banco Popular de Puerto Rico for the Virgin Islands region. I manage a portfolio, both retail and commercial credit for the U.S. Virgin Islands and the British Virgin Islands. My portfolio is almost $2 billion. So I am so pleased to be here to present to you two lovely young ladies who are fiscally fit, financially savvy, and successful in their youth in the finance arena. I'm very proud to have them. And I know it's been a long day. I'm hearing a little, you know, some energy level dip, but we're getting ready to talk about money. So I know you're ready for this, right? Energy level going up. So I'm going to let my beautiful panelists introduce themselves. Let's start with Jade.
Good afternoon.
Somalia.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jade Caldwell. I am the owner of the Credit Gems, a credit restoration company. I'm a wife, mom of four, a West girl. Very excited to talk to you guys about credit and how it is beneficial and very important, especially for us women, like becoming a credit restoration and education specialist literally changed my life. I was looking for an opportunity with the federal government. I was denied because I didn't have good credit at the time. And so I needed to figure out, like, how can I elevate myself to the next level? At the time, I was a single mom and moving to a new area in the States, and I really wanted to excel. So I used my temporary setback to elevate myself, and now I'm doing that to help elevate other women, especially Virgin Islands women, because I feel like it's a great way for me to give back. Coming from this community, we live primarily in a cash-based society, but you know, don't be afraid of credit. we need it. It's helpful to help us. We've talked about legacy a lot on this panel, so it's a great way for us to help build a legacy for our families. So, I'm excited to go more into that with you guys.
Excellent. Somalia?
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Somalia Edwards Warner. I am also born and bred here from St. Croix. I am an alumni of the University of the Virgin Islands.
Go Bucks!
I have my master's from Virginia Tech in Education. I am currently a training delivery manager for a top IT firm, but I also am a full-time realtor and real estate investor as well. I'm a mom of 2 and a wife as well.
Excellent. So they're us. They look like us, they talk like us, they grew up like us. So when we talk about financial wealth and building wealth, we think male, we think of another race primarily. Sometimes we feel it's not for us, but it is for us. It's very attainable and it is for us. And I want to start with Jade. You touched very briefly in your intro on your credit impacting your employment decision. And I think often when we think about credit, we immediately think about getting a credit card, financing a home or a car, but we don't think about that aspect of credit worthiness. So let's talk about credit worthiness, your credit score, important elements.
I think that the most important element regarding credit worthiness is to know where you stand with credit. A lot of people feel like they don't need to, we often wait until we need something to now start looking at our credit. Don't wait until you need to buy a house or you're trying to purchase a car or send your kids off to college and they cannot, be approved for a student loan to start looking into your credit. It's very simple. We have a lot of tools that are available for us. Credit Karma, which I don't particularly suggest, is one of them, but that's a step in the right direction because a lot of people don't know where they stand when it comes to their credit report. Or I've even had instances where I've had people come to me and say, I have bad credit, help me. And then when I pull their credit report, they have excellent credit. They just don't know anything about credit, how to establish their credit, what to do if they go the wrong direction, because life happens. Life happened to me, so I always say that it's very important to just get the knowledge first, find out where you stand with the credit, reach out to someone, go on the credit bureau's websites. It's, knowing is half of the battle. We always have to educate ourselves first.
Perfectly said. And definitely your credit score, as you indicated, impacts employment in some cases. It can impact your ability to rent an apartment or to invest in certain aspects, cell phone. Your credit score, it gives for the lending community the first insight into your credit character, your risk. And risk is what defines interest. The higher your risk, the higher interest, the less you can negotiate with me. Don't come to negotiate with me if your credit score is 620 because you're at the minimum. If you fall below that, we don't even have a conversation going. But if you have a credit score that's over 750, you probably get to negotiate with me. I may be calling you and saying, I want to give you this credit card. I want to give you this auto loan. No, don't buy it cash. Let me, I'm trying to get you in. So if you want to have buying strength, your credit score, right?
And it's also very important to make sure that not only do you have a good credit score, you have a good credit profile, the things that make up your credit report, the right amount of accounts, the right length of history for those accounts, whether you're making your payments on time, because like Oren emphasized, the banks are not going to give you money if they can't trust you. So you want to be a trustworthy person when it comes to credit.
Excellent, and I'm glad you made that point about it's not just a random score, it's how you pay your bills, it's the time, and it's the volume of credit that you have and the percentage you use.
Correct.
Perfect. So Somalia, you have ventured into what some see, well, first of all, before we get into that, you transitioned from education, right?
So, not quite. I spent over 10 years in education at the middle school and high school level. So I actually started as a paraprofessional at Arthur Richards. And I did that, and then I transitioned to the mainland and I became a teacher. And I went on to get my master's in education, and I taught some more. I actually left the classroom to move over to corporate America, and I became an IT trainer. So from there, I just worked my way up the ranks, and that's where I'm at now. So full-time, I'm a training delivery manager, right? I have a team of trainers that work under me. However, that's what I do to kind of pay the bills. It pays well. But my passion is really real estate. So my uncle actually was who inspired me to join real estate when I was in high school. He and his wife are realtors. And I've been in that industry studying, and I got my license. But I've always wanted to go into real estate investing because I know that that is one of the probably easiest ways to build generational wealth, right? My grandmother and great-grandmother owned multiple properties here in St. Croix, and just seeing what they were able to do, what it allowed them to do, was something that I also wanted to do as well. So that's kind of how I transitioned into that. But in order for me to get to that place, I had to have great credit. So it's kind of like a twofold process, but that's how I transitioned into doing that.
So when we talk about real estate investment, the first thought is buying a house to rent or buying a house to flip. But it's really so much more than that. So do you want to touch into some of the different aspects of real estate investment?
So one of the things when I work with new clients, or I have someone that says that they're interested in investing, I figure out what your goals are, right? Because everyone's goals are different. I may have someone that says, I just want 3 properties to be able to pay for XYZ. I may have someone else that says, I want to have 20 properties because I want to FIRE. So FIRE means to be financially independent, retire early. Some of us have goals where we don't want to spend 30 years in the government. Some of us don't want to spend 30 years in the government. So what can I do to put in place so I don't have to do that, right? So one of the ways that you can do that is through flipping. I'm sure all of us have seen HGTV. And they make it seem very glorified in terms of what you can do. You buy this house, you fix it up, and you sell it. There's a lot more that goes into flipping than what they show on TV. Yes, you get the essence of the basics of it, but reading the contract, understanding the terms, understanding that you now are managing a team of people to be able to fix this house. When this house is fixed, is it actually going to sell, right? And what is it going to sell for? How much money am I going to actually make? Because when you see, I bought this house for $100,000, I put in $50,000, so now I'm at $150,000 I've invested. I sold it for $300. Yay, I've made $150 profit. Not quite, right? Because now you have to think about all of the expenses that you've incurred on that journey to flip this house. You have to think about your realtor fees, your closing costs. So when you start to calculate all of those things, now that money starts to dwindle. However, that process of flipping is one of the ways that you could make money. It's just like you're working a job. Once that process is finished, that's it. You've made your money, but that's all you have. Now, if your goal is to create generational wealth, you want to have homes that you could pass on to your children, your great-grandchildren, now that's when we get into the process of buy and hold. So now this is me going into this where I'm going to buy this house and I'm going to rent it, right? And I want to make sure that my numbers work so that I can cash flow. So now the money that I make from this property can be money that I use to pay for my personal living expenses.
Exactly. I'm glad you touched on a few aspects of beyond the flip. due diligence whenever you get into any financial venture is so important. Yes, you may make that $50,000, but do you understand what your tax obligation is going to be on that money? Capital gains tax, or the better side of that, how can you avoid paying that tax? And there are legal ways that you can do it, you know. And when from the banking aspect, something a lot of our consumers don't know is the bank is under federal regulations to report. So if the minute the money hits the bank, Uncle Sam knows, somebody knows. It's out there, it's in the universe, it's known. So really don't think you're going to cheat the system or hide from the system. Once it's recorded, the transaction is recorded, so it's in the universe. So don't try to not present the true picture, but definitely your due diligence. And I'm gonna flip back to Jade for a minute when we talk about due diligence and understanding the power of your credit report in terms of security.
Right. So outside of credit repair, I also do information security for the federal government, Department of Justice. Security when it comes to your credit is very important. I always tell people one of the first things that we look at when I'm reviewing someone's credit report is their personal information. Everywhere that you've ever lived is on your credit report. Every name that you've ever had is on your credit report, your date of birth, where you've worked. All of that information is there. It's very important to make sure that you're reviewing your credit report again on a regular and consistent basis to make sure that your personal information is not just floating around because that leaves you open to identity theft. And I have a client who I just helped work through a situation with identity theft. She relocated from the States to the Virgin Islands, and one of the tenants of her home had someone, you know, around, and they were able to compromise her personal information and commit identity theft. Once someone steals your identity, now you're in a battle to prove that you are who you say you are. So we always have to make sure that we're being diligent. Credit is more than just a credit score, what's on your credit. It's your identity. It's like your social security card. I call it the adult report card. It says everything about you. And so you want to make sure that you safeguard this information with your life. And how we do that is by education and making sure that we stay diligent with, you know, primarily regularly checking our credit reports.
Thank you. And in line with that, there are other mechanisms in place in the banking industry that also follows your history. So when you go to open an account, we can actually run a scan on using your social security number. And if you were at another financial institution and you were bouncing checks, guess what? We know. You have a charge off, we know. So many people don't think of that because it doesn't appear on your credit report, but it appears on some of the internal bank systems that we utilize. Right. So we want to give you an opportunity to ask questions because we know on a topic such as this, many people have questions and a lot of the information. There's such a wealth of information we can share with you, but we really want to be able to address some of your concerns. So do we have any questions? There we go. Please.
I have stocks and I do really well, but I'm trying to get into new development investing. Do you know anything about that? Can you share with me if you do? And I have another question before you start. My question is to, I'm sorry, I forgot your name, the lady in the middle.
Jade.
You talk about ever so often reading your credit report. What are you looking for when you read your credit report? So those are my two questions.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, so when you're reviewing your credit report, you want to review your credit for inaccuracies. For example, old reporting addresses, name variations, incorrect date of birth, You want to check your, when you get into your accounts, you want to make sure that they're reporting the correct balances, correct accounts. For instance, like I said, if there might be an instance of identity theft, there's an account that's reporting that's in your name, but it does not belong to you. You have no awareness of this account. You always want to just make sure that whatever you are financially responsible for, the information on your credit report will be matching that information.
If I could just add, many credit reports also give you tips as to how you can improve your credit. So they'll tell you if you pay off this card first, it can boost your score 20 points to it. So there's a wealth of information.
Yeah, one more thing to add to your question. There are 3 different credit bureaus. I know that here in the Virgin Islands, we primarily use TransUnion, but it is very important that when you're pulling your credit report that you get a tri-merge credit report, because it will have all 3 credit bureaus, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, and that way you'll be looking at all of that information to make sure that it matches each other. A tri-merge credit report. And
you also want to keep that in mind if you ever have a compromise on your identity. The first reporting you should do is to those credit reports, the 3 credit reports. Bureaus, sorry.
You want to share? Well, Jade has a resource that she could share for credit report.
The resource that I use for my clients whenever I'm doing a consultation is identityiq.com. You'll be able to purchase a tri-merge credit report. I think it's $1 for the first 7 days, a trial, and then you just have to make sure that you cancel it. But if you wanted to invest in that, it's only $24.99 a month. But it's worth it because then you have access to all 3 credit reports at your leisure.
So your question was more about new development. Are you talking residential or commercial? So, okay. So here in the VI, you want to check your zoning, right? So if you have a piece of property that you're interested in building, you want to make sure that it's zoned either for commercial or residential. Funding, Banco Popular does funding. First. Oh, you want to be a private lender? Oh, okay. So the option that you're talking about is private lending. I actually know a few people that do private lending, and that's basically they don't want to take on the hassle and the risk of the actual project. They just want to say, I want to give you $20,000, and when your project is done, I get paid $24,000, right? Because now that you're gonna make a lot more money than having that $20,000 sit in, I'm sorry, Banco Popular. They're not gonna pay you that percentage. So needless to say, if that were a route that you were choosing to go, do your due diligence, right? I literally had someone ask this question to me day before yesterday. They're interested in investing in a condo. I said, find out, who the builder is. How many projects have they done? What do the budgets look like? Are they on time? Have they successfully completed those projects? Were they over budget on those projects? You want to do your research if you're gonna give somebody your money and understand what their track record is. If they've done private lending before, and they're paying back everyone that's invested, what did that timeline look like? Find out other people that have invested with them already to get perspective from them. Always do your due diligence if you want to be a private lender.
And I think the first step of that due diligence should be visiting an attorney, a real estate attorney, not just any attorney. Real estate law has quite a bit of nuances, and you want to understand what you're investing in, 1. 2, you want to determine what type of private lender are you. Are you going to just, as she said, sit back and wait for the project, or do you want to be included in the decision making? And then what is your exposure? What is the risk on this property? They begin to build, asbestos is found. How does that impact you as an investor? So you want to be clear about how much risk you want to take, exposure, how much say you want before you make the decision, this is what I want to get into. And then what is my tax obligation at the end of this transaction? Okay. Another question. Yes.
Good afternoon. I would like to know, a young lady right out of college, what tip can you give them, because they have zero credit, to build their credit?
I always suggest for credit building that a person can open a secured credit account, and basically what that is doing is you're requesting credit worthiness based off of your own money. So for example, with Discover Card, Discover and Capital One are very good resources for this. You go online, you fill out the application, you're going to give them a deposit to allow them to give you a credit card. And then if you use that credit card wisely over time, you can have that card converted from a secured credit card to a non-secured credit card, where you're no longer using your money to fund your credit account. Another suggestion would be to add the person as an authorized user to someone that has established credit report. I actually just made a post about this on social media about a week ago, just advising people, add your kids to your credit cards if you're responsible. From now, I mean, some credit card companies have no age limit, so why not help your one-year-old build credit right now, so by the time they graduate from high school, they're in the 750 range, and Oren can call them and be like, hey, little kid, do you want a car? Or another thing, you can help them establish credit by being a co-signer, and I know we talked about this, but your established credit, having your child piggyback off of your credit, but you have to be a person that is using your credit responsibly, have a good working knowledge of how credit works.
And understand the risk of that. It's good, yes, if you are responsible and you can continue to be responsible, but life happens. Life happens. Your situation may change. You may suffer an illness or a divorce, or, life happens. You don't want to drag your child's credit down with you. So Banco Popular does have a credit builder product. It is a credit card that's secured by cash deposits, starts like $500, and that's an excellent tool. I'm sorry? Thank you very much. Thank you. So that's an excellent tool. We also have the academia account for students that are in college, that they can have their own account, not be on mommy's account. And you can get their ATH card. My son is actually in college. I just got a notice from the apartment building that he's living in that their rent can be paid and tracked on his credit report. He can build credit through that mechanism. So those are the options, but be careful how you assign that, because life happens. And life happens also with co-signing, and we did want to touch on that. A lot of people have asked me over the years to co-sign. No. When you co-sign, you are a joint party to that contract. And that is a contract. It is a legal contract. It means that if any time they cannot fulfill that obligation, you are responsible. You are responsible on top of your other obligations. So if you don't want to have responsibility for that $20,000 car or that credit card or what have you, do not co-sign. Now, if you're in a position that you can, fine. And they may have the best intentions. They're not trying to leave you with that bill. You're saying, oh, I can trust this individual. Life happens. What happens if, for whatever reason, they can't continue the payment of no choosing of their own, they just can't? Then that becomes your obligation. So think very carefully about that.
Another big thing that I think people don't take into consideration co-signing is that affects your income to debt ratio and your utilization. So I may say I'm doing a favor for my sister and co-signing on a $20,000 car. Now that $20,000 debt is now on my credit report. That could affect me having the ability to buy a car, that could affect my ability to buy a house, because that now falls into your income to debt ratio. So it may seem like you're doing someone a favor, I'm really helping them out, but at the same time, you could potentially be doing a disservice to yourself. So you want to keep those things in mind as well.
Right. And your DTI is very important. That's something that from a financial institution we look at. You should be between, the comfortable spaces between 30 to 35. If you could get